So, we gonna buy a building this year or the next?
Yeah, I'd like to. I really would like to, but we have to do it with cash. I don't think I want to go through a bank loan.
I know. I've heard some horror stories dealing with the banks. I've heard some horror stories trying to buy property here and only a few good stories. Well, we're going to talk about all of that today. But first, let's introduce ourselves. Hey, y'all. My name's Halisi.
And I'm Rick. Welcome to our Black Utopia.
On our channel, we talk about money, travel, and retiring abroad as we build generational wealth. So, who are our special guests
We're going to
today?
talk to our special friends that I haven't seen but once since I've been here, Geri and Alex. They've been here before on
Yes,
this show.
yes, they have.
And our sweetheart, Twanna. She's also been on the show before. All fam. They're all family.
Yes, we've got family here. But first, if you are new to our channel, let me tell you about 6 years ago, Rick and I got a wake up call as we were getting close to retirement age, and our money looked funny.
Crazy.
But we got our financial act together in about 3 years. We went from negative 22,000 to over 800,000 in net worth. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please hit the like button. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know every time we drop a new video. So how are you guys doing today? Are you ready to
Hey,
have this
y'all.
discussion?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going to do a spoiler alert. I'm just going to let everybody tell their own story. So first, let's start with Alex and Geri, and let us know basically just the basics right now, and then we'll go through the story of how it happened.
Okay.
Did you buy something? Did you buy something? What did you buy and where?
Okay. We bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and we bought it in Portimão because we couldn't afford to buy anything in Lisbon at this point in time.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So where is Portimão?
Portimão is in the Algarve area.
Okay. So I think people know the Algarve better than they know the cities or towns within that southern region. So you bought an apartment in the Algarve, and it was less expensive because I heard the Algarve was kind of shishi.
Yeah, Algarve has lots of different parts.
Okay.
So I mean, all these different regions. So Portimão is one of the bigger cities, but it's not as touristy maybe as Albufeira and maybe Lagos.
Okay.
Some of those are Villa Moura, I think, might be a little more upscale. Yeah, but Portimão has a really nice. To me, it has a beach, but it also is right on a river. So you can take a river up to Silvestre by boat. So you have kind of both. You have a river front that you can go to, and then you also have beaches that are really popular. They actually have an annual Afro music event there.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Something, and they're thinking about bringing Formula F1 there, I guess.
When is the music event?
In the summer. Usually it's in the summer.
Okay.
Their favorite time of the year is August, so it's usually like July, August.
Okay. Cool. Well, we'll have to plan a trip down there.
Yeah, it becomes real slow. We went we bought the apartment in July when we went and signed our deed. That's midsummer. I mean, everybody was out, all kind of people around. When we went back, I think in September, nobody was there. Like in front of the apartment, all those streets full of cars. Couldn't find a place to park. There was plenty of it was like a completely different atmosphere. After the majority of the tourists went away after July and August.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting. They don't seem to go away here.
They're still there, but just not in the same numbers. I mean,
right.
You could definitely tell a difference in terms of how many people are crowded around, and like the beaches weren't as crowded.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, the same when we went down to Troia. So, okay, Twanna, so why don't you introduce yourself and tell just very quickly what you were buying and just the bottom line of what happened.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Twanna Hines, as Rick and Halisi said. Happy to be here and happy to be in Portugal. I knew from the moment that I planned to come, so not arrival, but even planning to come, I wanted to buy. Everyone was like, no, take your time, get to know the market. And I was like, I would rather buy year one, check it out for a year or two. And if it doesn't work out, if I don't like that neighborhood, I want something else. I've built up equity because the prices are going up so much. And I've given that money to myself to and as an investment in property instead of flushing in rent. So I've known since the very beginning, I'm going to buy a place. And in my whole kind of like put that out in the world, I told everybody. Everybody who knows me knew Twanna's going to buy an apartment in Lisbon. I put a newsletter out. I'm buying an apartment in Lisbon. That's what I'm doing. In Lisbon, I'm doing it. It's happening. I knew exactly what I wanted. 3-bedroom, single. I don't have children, but I need to sleep somewhere. My friends and family, when they visit, they need to sleep somewhere, and I need a home office so that I work for myself and I need to work. So I need a home office. So knew how many bedrooms, 2 bath. I wanted a terrace because I wanted to be outdoors. COVID taught me that I can't live inside and not be able to go outside when I'm in my home space. So I was like, I want a terrace, and and I want a river view. I was like, that's what I want. Not much, not just that. That's what I wanted. And so I set out. I had at one point 4 different realtors that I was working with, had all these things. And so I was ready. I had my stuff. So you know how this ends. Obviously, I didn't get an apartment. And we'll go into the details about why exactly that turned out the way that it did.
So before we say hello to who is in the audience, how many offers did you put out, Twanna?
I physically saw hundreds, if not maybe 1,000
Right.
places online.
Right.
I physically walked through 50 to 70 different places. I put offers in on 4 to
I thought-
6
I thought it was
different
4
places.
or
Like, yeah,
5. Yeah.
4 that were solid, like moved forward, and there were 1 or 2 that I was like, if they were to sell it for this price, I put in an offer. And 2 of those were kind of, yeah, they said no, but 4 solid offers that like banks were involved, lawyers were like 4 solid offers. Look at
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we know who we're talking to now, and basically what the story is. We're going to give you the details. Thank you, Action VJ. See, this is why we love our community. Hit like as you come in, y'all. Good to see you. Hey, Professor. Good to see you. And Auntie Trey from the ATL.
Hey, Auntie Trey.
Maria McFall from Bowie, Maryland. Ooh, cold. Sounds just cold, like Connecticut.
It
Sounds
does sound
cold.
cold.
Hey, Barbara. Hey, Pam.
Hey,
Good to
Pam.
see you. And Rosalind is in the house. We got Jackie's Journey and Shauna. Hey there. Good to see you again. It seems like I just saw you in Stephanie's. I think that was Stephanie's yesterday. I don't know. The days are just kind of blurring together now. M. Dickens is in the house. We've got My Stethoscope Travels. That's a new name. So either
No, I
you've
think
changed
that's
your
been
name.
there
Yeah.
before.
Have you seen it
I
before?
heard the picture
Okay,
looks
I'm
familiar.
sorry. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Greta. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Greta.
Although we just saw you about an hour ago. And Seashell. Is it Seashell or Seychelle? So I did see the pronunciation last week, and I was like, okay, I'm going to remember that. Hey, Nubia Neck, good to see you. Rhonda, Diana, Vicky, who else? Tanisha is in the house, and Lisa.
Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Good to see you. Valerina, Lucille, Samantha, and Mandel. Hey,
Mandel, how you
doing? Good to see
Wow.
you. I
That's a
know,
long
blast
time.
from the past. And Edna, good to see you guys. Hello, 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 family. Okay, Twanna. So you put in 4 offers, solid offers, besides the one that you're like, okay, I'm gonna lowball this because I think it's only worth X, Y, and Z, even though they're asking this, and you didn't really expect them to say yes. So we'll disregard those because we do that in the States as well.
Exactly.
But you put in, so tell us about that first offer with Home Chick, who wanted the huge deposit or earnest money.
Oh, I think that may have been the 3rd offer. The first, like it's like when you have too many boyfriends, you start forgetting which.
I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah. So the very first offer was one that I put in the offer, and I was dealing with a realtor who was not familiar with that area, which I learned is not a good idea because they don't necessarily have a full understanding of what an appropriate offer level is. So the place was asking this much. I offered this much, even though my budget was this. I offered this much because I can be a cheap ass. I love getting a bargain. And so if the realtor told me I can get it for this, I was like, why the fuck would I pay this? Like I can use that extra money for investment, for saving, for buying furniture. Because when you get a place, it's empty and you got to buy everything. So I was like, I'm going to offer this. So I offered this. It's sold for that. So if I had went a little bit closer, I could have had that place. It was gorgeous. It was minor renovations, but it was a wonderful place. And to this day, it had the biggest terrace that I've seen.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
That ginormous, like whole rooftop terrace, 360 views of Lisbon. I got outbid by 60,000 euros. And not because like the people had ginormous pockets, maybe they did, but my offer was such a low ball that someone could bid 60 more and still be under my budget. So I could have gotten it, but my guess, if I were the seller and the only two offers I got were one that was super low and one that was 60K higher, I would sell it to this person. I'm like, what if I don't get another one? But I would have outbid had I been given the chance. But I think they were just like, well, shit, if she only offered this, they're probably not going to offer more. So they went with this person. So that was lesson number one for me. 1 out of 5 million lessons in this process was if you want to buy in a particular neighborhood, make sure you're working with a realtor who knows that neighborhood and can give you good counsel about how much you should bid, what's really worth that, all of that stuff. I was dealing with a realtor from a very bougie, fantastic area of Lisbon. I was looking to buy in an up and coming area, and I'm like, it's not worth that much. Just bid this. Realistically, it's worth that much. And so that was offer number one.
Okay. So, some of these stories, okay, because we were walking with her through the ups and downs of this thing, and I was just like, that's when I think we decided. Well, we had already kind of decided we wanted to pay cash for whatever we bought here, right? Yeah, I think we had already decided that, but your experience confirmed it. Now, in contrast, Alex and Geri, walk us through, first of all, did you look in Lisbon at all and then make the decision? Or did you just know right off?
No, when we first moved here in 2019, we considered buying an apartment here. And we kind of had some of the same, baseline that Twanna had. We wanted a river view. We wanted a nice outside terrace. Now, because we're retired, we didn't want to go into debt. In some ways, I always feel like we're playing with house money retired because we have pensions. We're not going to run out of money. We have the same monthly amount every month, so we can spend. Doesn't matter. But I didn't want to go into debt. So, and pull out all of our stuff, our investments. So we actually found one apartment in Santarém. Sacavine. This is a little bit further up north of Parque de Nações, still near the Vasco da Gama Bridge. It was a beautiful apartment. It was top floor. It was perfect. A big wraparound balcony, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Had a view that you would never block. It had a garage. It actually had a 2-car garage with a door in the parking space. And this one didn't like the neighborhood. The neighborhood around the building itself was beautiful. She thought the neighborhood was not charming.
Yeah, it was not charming.
So
it's like you wouldn't want to walk down into the neighborhood and eat at the local restaurant because
I've seen there's
anything like that. I didn't see anything like that.
There's some sketch areas right next to some very nice areas, and it's like you cross the street and it's like, okay, Rick was like, you got me walking through the hood,
But this still was, there was a grocery store a block away.
Okay.
It was not outside of Lisbon. Again,
right.
I can understand the neighborhood, but the apartment was great. It was a beautiful apartment. The guy that built the building said it was built for his daughter. That's why it had the corner space. It was a top floor, nothing could block it, and it had a garage with a door. And she never moved into it. Anyway, so we didn't buy that.
And how much? Do you remember how much they were asking for it?
That was $325.
Okay.
for all that.
Yes, but this was in 2019, though.
2019,
And so
all
I
right.
still think
Yeah.
that that's a little bit expensive for 2019.
Well, compared to the other stuff we looked at,
In Lisbon, yeah.
and then also the condition of this building. This was a newer building.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
this was like
So that
it
means
had that whether there was you push one button and close all the blinds in the apartment, speakers
Wow.
throughout the apartment, all that kind of
okay.
stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know, it
So
was like
this
that kind of
It was
upscale.
the penthouse, and there's no one above you, and
Yeah.
maybe one neighbor to the side, and yeah, it was. And
It
you
was
had a great view of the Vasco da Gama Bridge.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we looked at that. We looked at a few also across the river in Alcochete.
I personally liked Alcochete.
Yeah, Alfama. But then, one thing I thought about is I didn't want to live outside of the city of Lisbon because I wanted to be able to meet friends and do things easily. And being across the river would mean either maybe having to get a car, using Uber more, some different things in terms of that kind of transportation. So we didn't, and then COVID happened. So we did all of this before COVID. Then COVID happened, and of course, we kind of just stopped.
Yeah.
It just stopped for a long time. And then we started looking again. We realized the things we wanted were out of our budget, and so what we wanted to spend. So then we started looking at the Algarve.
Okay.
And then we rethought too of not buying a place to live, but buying a second place to use as a vacation home and to maybe rent out. Because we still live in Lisbon. I love living in Parque de Nações. So I like living here.
Bougie ass.
Yeah, exactly. And no tourists. But
also we can't afford to buy. We couldn't afford to buy this apartment that we were in.
Well, we'd have to be in debt, and I don't want to be in debt. That was the thing.
Right.
I didn't want to go into debt. So anyway, fast forward, we get forward, and then we decide, okay, we start looking around Algarve, and we figure out, okay, we can find things that fit our budget. And so when we talked about budget, we said we had sold our house in the U.S. We're like, we want to keep some of that money around, and then we want to maybe get a small mortgage. Because we're, I'm American. I do stuff on credit. So it's like, give me a little bit of money. So we started looking. So one of the first things we did when we kind of got a ballpark estimate of what we wanted to spend, we actually have a list of my apartment purchase things that I do. So the first thing we did was after we kind of came up with the idea, we talked about, should we get a lawyer? And we kind of went back and forth because it's not inexpensive. I mean, it's not cheap to get a lawyer, but not knowing the language, all the different ins and outs. We found a good reference on Facebook, and we reached out to this woman, and I would say for what she charged us, it was well worth it. So we got a lawyer. She didn't do a ton of stuff. I think what she really did was things like verified property was available to be sold correctly. Everything was legal. She did all that kind of stuff and read the contract. Once we thought about Portimão, or really not just the Algarve, we started making trips back and forth. So we would go online and look. We didn't have a realtor. We would just look ourselves. We looked for this one woman that wanted a realtor, but she wanted like a percentage. What was that? There was something. It just was like, didn't seem like she wanted some money like up front. Yeah. Some kind of, and I was like,
look for us, and we're like, I can just look for myself for free.
So yeah, we found a bunch of things online. We
Wait a minute. The realtor. So Greta asks, how far is the Algarve from Lisbon? But let me get this straight. The realtor wanted money to look for you?
Or like, not to look for me, but like a deposit, and then it would be removed from whatever her commission was. But she wanted some money up front to start, doing the legwork. And I mean, again, I understand the concept. It's just it's like, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to. And that's the other thing, is that just because people ask for stuff, we're not from here. We don't know how it works, all of these things. And so in the home buying process, you run into stuff like that where it's like someone says, oh, well, this is how it is. But realistically, the owner pays the realtor. And so the realtor split that, but we wouldn't know that coming into it. And so I had the same thing, people offering me to pay them to help me find a place. So
yeah. So the other thing too is we knew we wanted to get a mortgage for part of the thing, not the whole thing, but for part of it. So we actually ended up, you know, who we got our mortgage broker was Idealista.
Oh,
I remember
really?
we had looked at a few of our banks. We went to some banks and we were having some runaround with some different banks, even though they gave us some estimates. And we also wanted a mortgage without life insurance. So I remember I actually we found, because we looked on the Idealist, that's where we actually found our apartment. We found a lot of stuff through the Idealist and Immobile or something.
Mhm.
I remember sending an email said, click here to get a loan. I clicked it, filled out some information, just like my name and contact, and I got an email back or a call the next day, this guy, hey, you know, send us your information, we'll mortgage broker, and we get paid by the seller, cost you nothing. So I was like, great. And they, sure enough, within like a couple of weeks, we had about 6 mortgage agreement loan offers, and 2 of them had no life insurance.
Cool.
And to explain that is that the mortgages here are based on age. So if you are usually the oldest of the loan to use maybe 75. So you'll get a loan at our age. Our loan will be about 16 years, and it's based on the oldest person, not the youngest person.
Correct.
Right.
So you do get, as part of your mortgage, you have to get a real estate insurance, you know, just for the apartment, but they also want you to get a life insurance policy, which would be fine, except it's very expensive. It adds an additional 200 euros
more, and it goes up
as you get older. It doesn't get
lower as the principal goes down. So anyway, but we were able to find one. So and the woman that we work with, the bank, she was really nice. We met her in person a couple of times. I actually ended up a few weeks ago doing an online like referral for them at a internal Zoom call for 850 Novo Banco employees. So I was like one of the only English speaking people on this Zoom call. I had to sit in their office, and I came on and told about my experience using their digital, like everything was paperless to sign.
Yeah, it was very high tech.
Yeah, but it was again, that was the step, finding that lawyer. And then once we had that mortgage, we did have an experience of one apartment that we really did love. I will admit, the apartment physically was closer to the river than the one we got. Had a beautiful, on the top floor, beautiful balcony, near to the beach. But this person, I think, was trying to raise the agent was trying to raise the price, and he was trying to get us to offer more. And this other person was bidding, and we made one additional offer, then we got out, and I was like, I don't want to keep bidding.
Yeah, because it was going to be a bidding war, and we
also
were going to be outbid.
Yeah, and also the apartment was not in fantastic condition physically. The building was great, the apartment was great, but some of there was a door, one of the doors needed to be put back in place. The guy's like, "Oh, put that in place," and the bathrooms weren't great.
It had missing
fittings,
but it was perfect because we originally wanted Albufeira, and someone had asked how far away is the Algarve from Lisbon, which is about 2.5, 3 hours by train, and possibly by car as well.
Yeah.
And to get to the apartment that we have in Portimão, we have to take the train and then take a urban train. So it's 2 trains to get to, and an Uber to our apartment.
But the apartment was in Portimão too.
I thought it was in Albufeira.
It was in Portimão.
Yeah. Well, I wanted Albufeira because it was only 1 train.
Yeah, but it was not as, but I mean, the apartment we got, it's 2 bedroom, 2 bath. However, the owner was only one owner. He was the original owner. He had lived there with his family. He moved out because they were a growing family. They had 1 child, and his wife was expecting another child. So it was it was too small for them. This place he completely redid himself.
Oh,
So
wow.
the on the floor we're on, there are 2 apartments that are 2 bedroom, 2 bath. They're on one side of the aisle of the hallway. On the other side are the smaller apartments. I found the other apartment, which is an Airbnb, online and looked at it. It had the regular bathtubs and showers. Ours are walk-in. Both of the bathrooms, he completely redid. He did the floors. It looked like a completely different apartment to the other one, that the Airbnb one.
Right, right.
And the nice thing is that we got all the furniture, all the appliances, 70-inch Sony TV, everything. And what was even better is the price we wanted, what they wanted. We just offered the price they asked for because it was within our budget. We didn't try to lowball them. And they said, okay. And then before we signed the promissory contract, the agent called me, the seller's agent, and said, we'd like to make a change to the deal. Can you give us more money for the internal stuff and less for the apartment, so the owner pays less taxes?
Oh.
So the total was
same amount of money. Were you just going to maneuver?
Yeah, we're just going to say,
okay,
we're going to give you X number for the apartment and this much for everything inside. In some ways, it was not, what we got inside was not worth it, but it was actually worth it for us because we also paid less taxes.
Right.
So when it came time to pay the taxes on the thing, we paid on the cost of the apartment, not the total cost.
Right.
The additional money that the bank gave the person, it was just free and clear for them.
Yeah, for furniture and used furniture, used appliances, etc.
But very nice furniture.
Yeah.
Right. But as far as the bank is concerned, it's still used, right? And
Correct.
so it
But the
makes
bank
sense.
didn't complain.
Yeah, the
That's
bank
good.
came in and did a assessment of to make sure it was worth the value of the loan. And but I think we're kind of getting a little ahead of ourselves a little bit.
So let me ask you this before we go to Twanna. Can you, if you don't mind, and no is a complete sentence, can you just tell us your budget range?
We didn't want to spend more than $250.
Okay. All right. All in,
Euros,
not from the
Euro,
loan.
Euro, not dollars,
yes.
euros.
Which right now we're 6% underwater, y'all. Because I be watching. So, okay. So 250 and that's 250 all in, including what you're going to put down cash and the loan, all in 250.
No, that was probably about 250 for the place. We knew we would have an extra, like maybe 10 to 15 for taxes and fees.
Okay.
Because and those are, the good thing about Portugal is those things are like set. There is no hidden thing. Our lawyer told us what you can calculate it. If you know the value of the property, anybody can tell you the amount that knows those calculations, what the taxes would be. Yeah. So that part was easy. But I mean, again, and to say one thing about the other apartment we missed out on, that would have been at closer to what we paid total for this apartment, and we still would have needed to furnish it.
Okay.
So there was, I mean, do some repairs, so the
repairs and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
All right. So Twanna, so you missed out by $65,000 on the one that you really, really wanted. What happened next?
Yeah, there are so many. If I can, I want to add a context on a couple of things. I didn't want to butt in. Geri and Alex said so many amazing things, and I kept hearing things like, oh, people won't know this or know this. So I just want to add a couple things before I go into mine. Age. To slow that down a little bit, if the oldest you can be for a mortgage is 75. So if you are 65 years old, you cannot get a mortgage for more than 10 years. If you are 55 years old, 20 years. So you're subtracting your age from 75. So some people have been doing, Americans, everybody's family is different. Everybody's relationships with their kids are different. If you know that when you pass on, say you're in the older age, so above 40, say, right? And you have children, and you know that you're going to leave your property and your assets to your children, you might want to consider your children buying the place. So the mortgage is in their name with you co-signing. If the rates go back really low, so then you can get a much longer mortgage, because then it's based on your children's age, which is younger than you. So you can stretch that out on a low rate, which might make sense with you backing them, co-signing so that they can actually get the mortgage because
Right.
they put in their own the money. So that's one way to kind of get around like how long can you get a mortgage, stuff like that. Life insurance. The reason they're requiring it, like to be explicit, the bank makes you put the bank as a benefactor if you die. So they're requiring it so that if you die and you can't pay your mortgage because you're not around, your life insurance will pay them money for the debt that they owe for you. So that's the life insurance thing. Another thing you can do is if you have life insurance in the Portugal, you can talk to people. So if you do have life insurance in the United States and you've got a good bank person, you could say, look, I already have life insurance. If the point is you want to be on the life insurance so that you get paid out, you can talk to them that we can make sure that you are added as a benefactor. If that's the problem, let's do that, because if that's all it's about, I don't want to pay more money for that when I'm already doing that. So you might be able to get U.S. life insurance to do that. So that's life insurance. They mentioned mortgage broker. That's something here that's super common. I'm not as trusted. I'm like, I don't know those people. I'm not giving them all that stuff. It doesn't cost me anything except for identity theft if they do that. So I was scared to use a mortgage broker. But what it means is this person, you give them all your stuff.
And they shop it.
Bank statements, all of your stuff, like all your personal details, you give this to this person. They shop it to different banks. And that mortgage broker works with so many different people instead of just you as an individual. So they can often get much better rates for you.
Yeah.
So that's when they said broker. That's what they meant by that broker.
Yeah.
And then I so related to everything that Alex said about, and Geri both, about great unit, great building, but neighborhood. That's something that I made my top 10 list for each. What's the top 10 that I need in my unit? Top 10 that I need in the building? Top 10 that I need in the neighborhood. And sometimes those things went against each other. So then I also had to prioritize what matters more to me. So all of those things I was thinking, and I wrote them down because my memory is really bad. But anyway.
And then to clarify too on that mortgage broker part, Twanna, I mean, just so everyone knows, the mortgage broker is paid by the bank who actually does the mortgage. So at the end, they sent me a thank you note because they were happy. Once, you know, we found, because a few times while we were looking, I remember the guy emailed me, hey, how's it coming? How's the search coming? You know, it's like, because he knows that until we sign, he's not going to get paid. So, but it's like Twanna said, they probably have better contacts at the banks and probably can go in and get some better rates than you would get if you just walking off the street. But there is a concern. I get your concern, Twanna, about the identity theft, because you're right. You're sending them a lot of documents. Passport, ID, bank information, credit history, you know, credit reports from you. It's like, that's a lot to send to somebody, you know, which again,
online.
I was more comfortable using a company versus a person that I just went off that met on the street. So it's like, you know, Idealist is a big company over here, or they're in Europe. So, you know, I'm not as worried with them. And you know, one thing you get here in Europe, when you send people stuff online, a lot of times they'll send you a document saying you agree for them to keep your information, and this is how they're going to secure it. So they're really good in terms about being upfront about what they're going to use your information for and how long they're going to keep it. So.
Yeah. Every time we've gotten a mortgage, it's been with a mortgage broker. We've never gone directly to a bank. And we get our cars from car brokers too, back in the States, you know. So it's good to hear that it basically works the same way as it does in the States. Okay, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask a question, Twanna, real quick about the kid, putting your mortgage in the kid's name or having the kids. One, do the children, would they have to be residents of Portugal?
Nope. No, Portugal, as of right now, is one of the very few countries where you don't have to live in Portugal. You don't have to be a resident here. Anyone, anywhere in the world can buy property in Portugal. That's unusual. Usually you have to have some tie to it.
Yeah, you only need a NIF. That's all you need is a NIF and a bank account.
That NIF gets you everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. I thought the law was that your stuff has to go to your kids anyway. So
it does, but I think what Twanna is saying is that if you're older and your children are younger, that could extend your loan amount. You know, it kind of works. It's an interesting concept because that's kind of what I've been thinking about my son in the U.S. If he buys a house, I was thinking to help him and his wife, let me co-sign or be a co-owner on it. That way, if I make a part of the payment, it's not a gift tax to you each year.
Right.
I'm
Right.
actually paying for my property.
Right.
So
Right.
if I'm paying half of the mortgage of your house in the U.S., I'm helping you out, but to the government, it's mine. And then if I die, since you're already on the owner, it's not even probate. It's just to the other
Right.
person.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Twanna, part 2.
All right. Boyfriend number 2, boyfriend number 3, boyfriend number 4. So the second place and the lessons that I learned on that, one, everybody in Portugal knows somebody who works in real estate or says that they work in real estate or something. And so,
Yes.
so this one, I had someone say, "Oh, you're looking. Oh, my cousin owns it." So I went through this person I knew, and then they connected me to this place, which was gorgeous. It was top floor unit, beautiful skyline views of Lisbon, of the water, of everything. 3 bed, 2 bath, newly renovated, brand new renovated, owned by Californians. And so they had not only renovated it, but they'd renovated it in the way that you would expect an American apartment to look. So it had a water filtration system in. It was like fully air conditioned every room, like full blast. I walked in, I was like cold. I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? And they're like, the owners are from California. I was like, oh, okay. Now all of this makes sense. Like everything about the way I was just like giddy, like running around the place, like skipping. I was so excited about it. Wraparound terrace. It was gorgeous. 280,000 euros. So my budget was 250. That was my budget. And my stretch budget, like if it had everything that I wanted, I was willing to go up to like 3. But I really wanted to find something for 250 because at that rate, my mortgage could be lower than $1,000. So I was like, that's what I wanted. And I'm going for a mortgage. And so that place, the friend was routing me to this person. They wanted me to route me to someone else to get financing. I was like, I don't want financing. I want a meeting with the owners. They're American. I'm American. Makes no goddamn sense that I'm talking to you in English. You're translating it to Brazilian Portuguese, then to them in European Portuguese, then back to them in get me a meeting with these owners and we can talk, and they either agree, they don't agree or whatever, but we can cut a lot out. We can get this done really quickly. It's a deal. So we went around and all this stuff or whatever. And then so like we finally sit down for the meeting, and then it's a different person there. And they're like, you have a house. We're so excited. I'm like, I didn't put in any, what are you talking? Like there was just so much like mess and bullshit. And I am not messy or about bullshit when it comes to my money. And so that may have worked out in the end, but I was like, this is too messy. This is way too messy for me. And so one of my my offer, if I put an offer in, one of my conditions or contingencies, we would call these in the US, was that the bank had to say the place was worth it. Probably would be, but I needed to make sure the bank would say it, because if not, I'm going to have to pay that difference in cash, and I was not going to do that. And so then the owners balked at that. They're like, no, we've told you it's worth it. We've told you it's worth that. I'm like, and I'm not a dumbass. I don't believe everything that's told to me. Maybe it's true, but the bank will tell me through an independent appraisal how much it's actually worth. And so they balked at that. They're like, well, it's worth this. And if you don't want that, I was like, then we've ended our conversation. We're good. And so, so many lessons in that one. One, everybody says they work in real estate. No, only deal with people you actually know, trust, get to know, kind of working with people, things like that. Don't be afraid to walk away. That place was amazing. And I was so like, oh my gosh, I want to, but not at any cost. And so I knew these are my sticking points. It has to be contingent on mortgage, because if the bank says no, I don't have $300K to give you cash. And it also has to be contingent on the appraisal. And so know what your walk away points are, and don't be afraid to walk away. And
Was that the one where they hadn't gotten the approval to add the balcony into the living space?
That's boyfriend number 3.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
And I literally
That's the one I liked. I really liked that one.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And that's the thing. It's kind of like when all your friends are like, oh, we loved him for you. We're so sad now. Everybody was like, boyfriend apartment number 3 was your man. That was your man. Like everybody felt that way. But something else I learned about with that one that I walked away from. So from number 2 was that a lot of Portuguese people told me, even though your top floor units are going to offer the best views, it's better to go one below if you can. don't buy a top and don't buy a bottom. As a sexual health educator, I love tops and bottoms. All is fine. But when you're buying a place with the condos the way that they are here compared to the US, if something only affects your unit, it's going to be much harder to get everyone to pony up to pay for it. And if
Like
you're on
the
a top
roof.
floor, the kinds of leaks you'll get from the roof, or if you're in a bottom floor, the kinds of flooding you get from the basement are more likely to affect your unit than the other ones. So my Portuguese banker, Portuguese friends, everyone said, try and get one of these middle units and avoid the very, very top, the very bottom. So those are some of the kind of lessons I learned from number 2. Work with people you trust. Don't be afraid to walk away. Know what your deal breakers are and stick to those. And even though something's perfect, there may be things you're not thinking of. Like I didn't consider the top one. And in fact, that particular place had crazy leakage problems. And so they had to get the roof replaced. No one in the building wanted to pay for that. And so the Americans were like, well, shit, we'll just pay for it cash. So they paid for the roof cash, which was, I think, $4,000 here for a whole roof compared to that to United States. So they paid for that cash. And the trade-off was you don't have to pay community costs because you're basically being reimbursed for it. And so that was going to be in my thing.
So their HOA, so to speak, they were relieved from for a while until
exactly. Because you
made
basically
whole.
get paid in advance because you paid for a roof for the thing. And so
Okay.
then the banker was even like, yeah, but even like it depends who did the roof. That doesn't mean it's perfect. You can still. So what you know is that unit had a leakage problem. So you just don't know what you don't know. So that was yet another lesson I learned on that second go round.
Let's get to some questions here because they are popping off in the chat here. So, okay. So let's start with Rhonda asked, is Portimão a walkable city or is it true that you need a car?
It's very walkable. The apartment that we chose, we're about 15 minutes to the beach and 15 minutes to the river, and it's a nice walk. It's not too much uphill.
And we're also we didn't know this. I'm surprised the agent didn't tell us, but when we moved in, so after we got the keys and we were excited, we were kind of walking around the neighborhood and we realized he had told us that, oh, there's a Continent, which is a grocery store here, right, nearby, a few blocks away. We get there, it's a Continent Mall. So it's like a massive Continent.
Oh, the
there's
big
like
one.
3 floors, a movie theater, all these different, it's like, oh, okay, this is like we could get everything we need pretty much here
in one place.
without literally 5 minutes from the apartment.
Wow.
So I'm really happy about that. Like we're actually going back after Christmas, the 27th. Probably one of the first things we'll do is we'll walk to Continent and buy some food.
So for those in our audience who don't know, so Continent here, there's different levels, but the big Continent is akin to Whole Foods meets Super Target. So on steroids. The grocery store is a real grocery store. It's not like Target grocery store where it's just some picked over leftover fruits and vegetables and stuff and then frozen goods in the Super Targets. It's like a full-fledged with a butcher and a baker and someone at a cheese stand with the nice cheeses and all of that.
Halisi, to me, Continent here is like a little bit like a super Walmart, but different. Whereas in super Walmarts in the US are mostly everything and groceries are a small part. Here, Continent is mostly groceries and the clothing and the automotive and that's the small part.
That's just
yes.
So it's like it's really food.
Flipped on its head. Yes, but better quality food than you would get at a super Walmart.
And lots of wine.
And cheese. Aisles of cheese and wine.
And aisles of yogurt.
Aisles of yogurt.
They love yogurt.
Could you get a life insurance policy in the US before buying in Portugal for the amount of the mortgage, getting the policy in your spouse's name? So, we believe so. Twanna was saying that could be an option. I would triple check though, Greta, with some bankers here or an attorney here before doing that, because even the insurance policies back home, if you get them late in life, they still are expensive and up there in the $200 range and stuff like that. That's definitely,
I would agree, Halisi, checking, because I think it could be done, but it would also depend on which bank you're dealing with. because the bank we ended up using, Novo Banco, I don't know if they would have accepted that. Whereas a different bank might have said yes. I mean, it would depend, but it's worth a try though. It doesn't,
try.
but I would agree with you. Don't buy it before you, assuming you can use it. You might want to check with the, get a lawyer or more broker over here to working on your behalf. That can reach out and find that information out, and then you can decide if that's an option.
Definitely. So congratulations, Diane, on your VFS appointment.
Yeah, congratulations.
Be prepared to wait another 10 months. No, I'm teasing. Well, so Alex and Geri, I don't know if you guys know. So we got our official yes a month after we got here, right? So we got here September 23rd. We got our official yes, actually like October 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Our self appointment, our immigration appointment, you guys, is not until mid-May.
Wow. Yeah, they're really backed up.
It backs up, and it also depends which VFS in the United States you're going to. And so the San Francisco office is very different from the DC office, is very different. The wait times, how long the processing, what they require, how they there can be a lot of variation between the VFS offices. And so,
However, we have heard from the groups, not firsthand, that even folks who are getting their visa from back east, the self appointment is still
further out.
The self part I can see, yes, but I would agree with Twanna that the actual consulates in the U.S. are very different in terms of what they ask for. I think SEF is just, for a while here, they were talking about disbanding SEF and making it something else. I think there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff in Portugal with that, but that doesn't mean, as long as you have your visa approved and you have an SEF appointment, if it's 9 months in the future, you're good as long as you carry that visa with you.
Right.
The only thing is, we want to travel.
Well,
so, and we
I don't know how that
can't.
works, so how much you travel out with your visa, but that's a different discussion.
So we've already been told we can not leave between the time our visa ends and the self appointment. So that, so. Do you guys remember the percentage of property taxes?
Oh, it was small. I mean, I'll be honest with you. So our place was roughly, I think we paid like $247 total. I think the taxes and everything were about $13,000.
Taxes and fees.
And like taxes to the government, stamp tax, other taxes. It's really interesting when you go to sign the deed, at least for us, when you're in there, after you go through the whole, they read the deed and everybody agrees to it. It's all in Portuguese. And then our lawyer translated it to us in English. Then they start, the notary for the bank starts doing some stuff, and she starts handing you these slips like, okay, here's the amount to go pay by direct debit to this company, this organization. So you go upstairs and you type the reference number in and you pay it. And then here's the next one. And in Portugal, my opinion, once someone starts asking you, okay, here's what to pay me, it means you're approved. Because they don't ask for money until the end. So it's like once they say, oh, where's the money? Like if you go to your SEF appointment, once they say, okay, you need to pay this much, you're done.
You're good.
You are good.
To add to the tax thing, it's scaled. So the more expensive your property is, the higher percentage of tax you pay. So if your property cost is here or lower, you don't pay anything in taxes. If it's between here and here, you pay X percent. If it's between here and here, you pay X plus percent. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And that's why the seller wanted us to negotiate.
Exactly. It's not just, it's 10% of a bigger number. Now maybe it's 12% of a bigger number, which explains why the seller was like, oh shit, if you go here, it probably bumped them to a lower bracket. So you pay the same amount, but it puts you down there. And it's advantageous for you because depending on your bank, not only are the taxes a percentage of that, your bank fees, everything is a percentage of your price. So when
Yeah.
you're negotiating for a lower price,
Interesting.
Yeah, so exactly. So for us, that's the reason. So the agent for the seller, when he called, he said the reason he wanted to do that big difference in the deal is because the owner changed that property to his second property in January of this year, and so now he realized he was going to pay more taxes because it wasn't his primary, and that's why he wanted to change it. So in reality, we only paid $212,000 for the property, or 212,000 euros. The rest was all for the internal stuff. But he did that to keep his taxes low.
Low as well.
But like Twanna said, it worked out for us too, because everything was lower.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then I guess, also when you have rental properties here, so if Alex and Geri decide to rent it out, when you have rental properties, they expect that you pay those taxes every month on whatever rent you're getting. So we found that out as well.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure about the month. There's a stamp tax you pay when you register your lease with the tax authority. So for us, one of the goals, since we still live in Lisbon, we have actually rented our apartment to an American for their visa. So a nice African-American man that we met and had a Zoom call with, because one of my thoughts is I don't really know if I want to do Airbnb, but if I can rent it to Americans who just need a valid place that's truly valid for a year, registered with the tax authority, and then when they get here, they don't have to stay in it if they don't want to. They're welcome to go find something else. I won't make them stay X number of months. So he has actually already paid us, but of course he hasn't come here because he's just sent his documents in.
Right.
It's like it's like a cart before the horse thing. He needed to have a lease, but he hasn't been approved.
Right.
So so for me, when we did that and I registered it with the tax authority and I did all this myself, it's like they immediately say you owe 10% of the monthly rent as a stamp tax one time.
Right.
But you pay that every time you do a new contract. If it's a renewable one, then you don't pay it again. If you have to renew it or do a new one. Yeah, so, but I mean, it's 10%, it's not a lot. It's 10% of 1 month.
Okay.
So like, let's say someone's rent was 1,500, it's like the landlord pays 150 euros for that lease thing.
10%.
I'm sure they pay taxes if you're a Portuguese person because it's income. We're still on that zero in NHR thing. We're lucky. We're on the zero.
Yeah, because the zero NHR does not exist anymore, folks. And so LVNCSR, we did a video on getting residency in Portugal. It's called Getting Residency in 2 Countries at the Same Time. And Rick and I are going like this. So after this, go into our library and you will see under All Things Portugal, how to get residency in Portugal.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So that's a whole show in and of itself. Okay. It's apparently one of the hardest visas to get, because we're going to do an episode on the easiest visas to get. And so they do have the highest percentage of rejection, one of the highest percentage of rejection. But I'm thinking it's probably because people are just not turning in all of their stuff. It's a lot of stuff, but in comparison to the UK, in comparison to the United States and places like that, where in the United States, you can't just retire to the United States. Right. They don't want you. You have to come in as a refugee. You have to come in as somebody who's needed for that particular company. You have to be sponsored. You have to marry. You can't just move to the United States like you can move here. So when you compare it to that, it's an easy visa to get. Any apartments in the $100,000 to $150,000 range that are decent. And I know that Greta will live in a small place. Perhaps Greta on the other side of the river. And what's true today is not necessarily what's true tomorrow. And I still think we're going to see a bubble burst here. But in Almada and Casillas and over on the other side of the river, where you're just that 10-minute ferry ride away, you probably could still get like a 1-bedroom. What do you think, Twanna? You've been looking over there.
I would say, yes. I think, the river to me is like San Francisco and Oakland. Lisbon, San Francisco, Almada is Oakland, where you're right on the same bay, but this side is cheaper than this side.
Yeah, it's the same with New York and Brooklyn, or like Long Island City or Jersey City, or any of these, or any major city, there's the other side of the river kind of thing. And I would say a few years ago, sure, you could have done that. But even now there, like, and all of those, Almada, Seychelles, Barreiro, those three are the three that are considered Lisbon South Bay, that are literally right on the other side of the water, have direct ferries directly to all three.
Yeah.
All three of those have now gone up in price. Seychelles, a lot of the new developments have pools and doormen and all these things, and they're $250 and up. And so
Wow.
it's even what people were saying about it being cheaper, that's changed in the past, like less than a year. And so if this question, are there apartments in the 150, the 1 to 150 range that's decent? Yes, even in Lisbon. But here's the thing. One, what's your definition of decent? That varies place by place. How much work are you willing to have renovated or do yourself or things like that? The apartment I just moved into, the guy who moved out before me just bought a place in Alcântara in Lisbon for that range. So he's paying 1 to 150.
Okay.
It had a leak in the ceiling when he moved in.
Ah.
It's super tiny. It needs renovation work. So it's like, it's budget versus work. And those two things kind of go off together.
Yeah.
They
Well, one
work-
thing that I do know is she's living in a single right now. So she's willing to go small.
even small.
But I'm sure she's not willing to be doing a whole bunch of, I mean, maybe some lipstick and rouge,
A
Yeah.
lot of fix up, no.
but not a lot of fix up.
If you get
I
out-
do know we have some Portuguese folks in the audience. I've seen y'all. I see you guys in the chat. So if you can help us out on any of this, please. But what were you going to say, Twanna?
I was gonna say also, if you get up, not only just like out of the Lisbon metro, like going to the other side, if you get out of Lisbon total, I saw one of the questions here, which is quite, can I read it out loud? What I see here? Can I do that? Can I give some secrets in case someone didn't see it? Can I do that?
Yeah. Did it have a cube in front of it? Because we'll probably get to it.
No,
Okay.
it wasn't a question. It was more of a remark.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm from London. Just wondering why a lot of Americans concentrate in Lisbon or down south. Why don't they experience life in central Portugal? I'm trying to do that in a British accent, and my British accent is horrible.
I didn't quite hear that.
It's a funny comment because the Algarve is swarming with Brits. And so the same question could be asked, why are all the Brits in the Algarve? So that's the first one. And then second, as a migrant, no matter where in the world you're from, you want to be someplace where you feel comfortable, where you feel like there are other people who relate to you, where you feel like that. And larger cities are going to have that. There are fewer British people in Idaho than there are in New York City. And that's the same for any country. And so when a lot of, I think, Portuguese people or people from other countries are like, why is everyone going to Lisbon? Why is everyone going? If you don't speak Portuguese, if this is your first time living abroad, even if it's not, hell, this is my third time living not only abroad, specifically in Europe, it's just easier to be in a place that's larger. So that may be part of it. That said, for people who have smaller budgets, so say this 1 to 150 range, if you are not in Porto, the Algarve, Lisbon, or even the surrounding areas, like Braga is surrounding Porto, if you get out of all of that and go into the more kind of rural areas, 1 to 150 is a large budget. But keep in mind, that's like being a migrant to the United States and saying, I'm not going to live in New York or San Francisco or whatever. I'm going to move to Wyoming because I can get a good deal. You also, as a migrant, someone on your own, where you may or may not speak the language, what's available to support you is going to be lower. You know, there are parts of central Portugal where there are going to be more help, but I think this is why a lot of people are migrating to the bigger cities.
Well, I'm a city girl, and unapologetically, I'm a city girl, so it was never even a consideration. But for the folks, for the Americans that I know who moved outside of the city, they had been here for a minute. They know a little Portuguese, right? The people who I know on the Silver Coast and things like that. So they got a plethora of friends, right? And they can, you know, they know where to get the grits and the stuff for their hair already. So, so Jazzy Old Chick says,
right? Party until 3 a.m. every night, which you can do in Lisbon, fine. They might not be someone who needs bars to stay open to 3, 4, 5 in the morning. It may not be a single person.
Like Twanna does, because if you stay out with Twanna, you will be out all night long. So,
but you know, one thing Geri said was also a lot of the people that live those areas have cars.
Yeah.
And I don't own a car. I've never driven here. I don't want to buy a car, even though our apartment in Portimão has 2 parking spaces. Our apartment here in Lisbon has 2 parking spaces underground. We never use it. But
For our company.
I don't want to have a car. I would tell people one thing to consider if you want to be, like Twanna saying, not so far out that you need to really know a lot of Portuguese.
Right.
Look along like the train lines.
Yes.
Like the train that goes from here to Cascais. There's lots of places between here and Cascais. From here north towards Santarém. Look along that way, because that way you can get back to Lisbon quickly on a train, like, with less than an hour, but you're still paying less because you're no longer in the physical city of Lisbon.
Yes.
There's some advantages to that kind of, living a little outside of the city. But again, some of that is like, again, if you want to go out late at night here in Lisbon, that's easy for us to do because it's a simple, inexpensive Uber ride to get home. If I'm living further out, that's a different discussion. So you just have to think about that. And I think it's important. One thing that we did, and I think Twanna did also, is writing that list of what you want out of an apartment and sticking to it. And don't seeing something and saying, it has everything but this top 2 thing that I really wanted. I'm going to do it anyway. It's like, no, you've got to make sure it meets all of the things in your target. So.
As U.S. citizens and residents of Portugal, do you file income taxes for both countries? Does the mortgage help you with your U.S. taxes? So none of us on here are tax specialists, but if they're willing to share, I will let them.
Well, I will say yes, we file both taxes. We don't pay Portuguese taxes yet because we were the fortunate that have the 0 AHR. We still pay our U.S. taxes. I do not believe that our mortgage here will have any impact on our U.S. taxes.
We haven't filed that yet.
We haven't filed that, but I don't see where we would put that. Because in the U.S. you pay property taxes. I mean, there's a big difference here. So in the U.S., our property taxes at our home in Sacramento were probably close to $5,000, $6,000 a year.
Right.
Here, they're going to be about 600 euros a year.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not even going to be a big, I mean, it's like, what benefit am I going to get of taking that off? It's not like it's thousands of things. We're actually going to pay more. So one thing to keep in mind too, if you're buying an apartment in Lisbon, is condo fees. So ask what the condo fees are, because if you get a place with a pool, it's going to be higher.
Yep.
Right.
You get a place with like really nice elevators, that stuff's going to add up.
Exactly.
And we're going to pay more in condo fees in Portimão than we're going to pay in property taxes.
Yeah,
in a
I
year.
can see.
Our condo fees are not a lot, but that's a factor. When you're talking to people and you look at an apartment, ask them. That was one of the things on our checklist. What are the condo fees? Because don't come back and tell us the condo fees. Like, I'll be honest with you, the apartment we stay in right now in Lisbon that we don't own, but this person in Hong Kong owns, they pay like 200 something euros a month for condo fees. And I don't know why, because it's like, it's not that big a bill, but you have to take that into account.
And so in both ways, right? Like, you don't want it to be so low that when something happens with the building, there's not enough in the kitty to fix it. But
Which
then,
is that one American couple paid for the whole roof because there wasn't that much of the kitty to fix that roof. And the second one,
I remember we did look at an apartment and they had elevators, but the only one operated because they only wanted to pay for one to operate.
They own the owners. And again, remember, you're dealing with not just you, it's like the other owners have to agree. Right. And in that apartment, the other owners have said, one apartment's enough. We
one
don't
elevator.
Yeah, one elevator is enough. We don't need two.
Wow.
yes.
That's a bunch of cheap people there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Diane, Rossini's information, if you're talking about the apartment hunter guy, his information is in the description below. It's in every description of all of our more recent videos, like the last 4 months. And then banks, all of the banks that we've dealt with are pretty good. There's some that are like Nova. They mentioned Novo Bank. That's a relatively large bank. Millennial
Bank
is
Center,
around
Millennium, BPI, Santander. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good banks. I mean, they're reputable and they're usually like not just Portuguese banks, but they're European banks. So there'll be
Right.
banks from
Right.
Spain or Germany,
Exactly.
you know. So
Yeah, because I think Millennium's not
Is
a
not Portuguese bank.
bank.
Exactly. Millennium has high fees though. There's another bank that locals use. I want to say it's CAXIAS Heral.
Caixa Geral. Yeah.
And they say that there's little to no fees there. We have a company that we deal with called Border IO. Their information is in the description as well, and they will help you with a bank account and a NIF, or one or the other, whatever you want. So,
and you can cross-pollinate. You can have your bank account with one if they have advantageous fees, or if their stuff's in English, which was very helpful. If not all banks do that, but some banks have their app, their paperwork, everything in English for you, or French, or whatever language you need. So that might be something you want for your day-to-day, but maybe you get an amazing mortgage rate from a different bank.
yeah.
So something you can do, you're not bound by everything with one bank either.
No, definitely not.
That is exactly for us. I mean, we've had Millennium since we moved here. That's our day-to-day bank. But Noble Banco was who had the best thing for the mortgage. So we opened an account with them just for that.
You can be polyamorous in your banking.
Yeah.
It always comes back to sex talk. So BP, every single country that we've checked out to get residency, it's a two-part process. The one part you start outside of the country, usually in your home country, and that's where you go to the consulate, turn in all of your paperwork to see if you qualify to get their residency visa. So they put a visa. It's actually like a sticker into your passport. And then when you come into the country, they stamp that visa. Then the second part is when you get your quote unquote green card. All right. So you go to the immigration department and you show them, look, I got my visa and I'm here, now give me my green card. And there's probably some more stuff that we have to do. We've hired somebody to help us with that. You don't have to, you can DIY it. But yeah, so it's always a two-step process. It was like that in Mexico, where we started the process in Denver and then we finished it up in Puerto Vallarta. And then the same is true for here.
Can I say two things?
Yeah.
Okay, one, if you're posting a question in the comments, that if you post that same question in Google, it would give you the answers. That's probably a good thing to do first. So try that. Like anyone who's a content maker, you get a lot of questions, especially, I don't know for y'all, but once you move to Portugal, you start doing that, you get a lot of questions like, do they have, contact lens solution there? Or like a lot of questions that you're like, the things that are like easy to Google. And it's like, if you're asking a question, it's like, what are the names of the banks in Portugal? You could probably Google that one. When you've got these folks live, this is the real kind of, you can't get it from Google, like time to ask those kinds of questions. So that's good. The other thing that I'll say that you probably can't say, so I'll say, I don't see enough likes in there. So if there are a lot of
I can't see it.
and not as many likes. So I feel like we need more likes and subscribes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So BP, we did answer this question, and I know I'm behind on the questions. So you probably got your answer there. So the $13,000 was the one time. And then as he said, it's the annual taxes are less than $600 per year. Can I be next?
For what we paid.
Yes. And it depends. I mean, same as in the States, your taxes depend upon square footage, etc. So, can I be next in line? Need an apartment? We've got a fabulous apartment. And so if I always suggest renting first, so you can get a lay of the land and know where you want to live, meet some people and all of that stuff. Right. So Rossini's information is down in the description. Is it possible to find an upgraded apartment in the Algarve for about $200,000 if paying cash?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Well, we haven't looked since we bought in July, but in July when we bought, our apartment is very modern. It's, got a nice balcony. It's, again, kind of like Twanna said, it's 11-story building, but we're on the 9th floor. So we're not on that top floor, but we're not in the basement. We've got 2 parking spaces. We've got walk-in showers in both the bathrooms, built-in closets. The terrace is the whole length of the apartment, but they walled off the master part. So it's almost like a sunroom. But you still have this other part of the balcony that's still massive where we put a table out there and we still have some chairs. It's a big balcony. And that's a modern building. It's in part of Portimão that's considered the urban realization area. All the buildings are pretty modern.
There was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment that I really liked. Had a great view of the ocean, and had a like an Olympic-sized pool, you know. But and it was 198,
187.
180 something.
Yeah, but that building, I didn't like the building.
So this is where, because it was older.
It was
and they had higher. They had
higher
fairly high homeowners fees. I'd never heard, you know, it was about 150.
Because that pool was huge.
Yeah.
The pool was like a hotel pool, like a lap pool.
Wow.
A hotel that they turned into a condo.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I thought it was a great apartment. But you know, he didn't like it as much.
And but it had a tiny kitchen. Like it was
we're not living there.
But for people visiting, you know.
We're not living there.
So Greta, and anyone, there is a train that goes from Cais de Sodré. So that's in the city center, basically, of the tourist area of Lisbon. And from there is a train that basically follows the coastline down to Cascais. That's what Alex was talking about. And if you look at the stops, you can pull that up on Google Maps or whatever, and you can look at the stops and then look at the areas that are on those stops. And by and large, you will not need a car.
Yes.
And to get from Cascais on the train back to, which is the furthest, and still be in Lisbon proper, basically, or the city of Lisbon or the district of Lisbon, is what, 20 minutes?
No, it's longer. It's probably about 45, 50 minutes.
No.
But
Yeah.
That train from Cais de Sodré to Cascais.
It seems like I play a couple of games and then I'm here.
40 minutes.
Because you vegged out. Really,
I think he was thinking about the Sintra.
no.
Cascais is a good 40 minutes.
I'm telling you, that train is about 45 minutes.
Exactly.
And the thing is, there's a Arraios. Was it's a city kind of between
Arraios.
Lisbon and we know some people that live there. When we would visit, it's a nice city.
Oh, here it is. Yeah.
It's a really nice place. Again, it's just something to consider.
Carcavalhos.
Yeah, there's Algarve. There's all these little stops along the way. To be honest with you, I wouldn't live in Cascais because I remember living in San Francisco. Cascais reminds me of Sausalito. Rich.
Yes. La
People
Jolla.
of certain skin color that don't want other people there.
What?
That's what that
You
reminds
didn't
me
get
of.
that at all.
That's what that
He got
reminds me
the same feeling. He got the same feeling. So Sausalito.
Did you, Rick?
Yeah.
You had that feeling, Rick?
Oh yeah.
Sausalito, La
I didn't get
Jolla.
that feeling at all.
Yeah. And so then when we start walking back down the hill and he starts seeing graffiti and stuff, he's like, oh, okay, I can relax now.
I saw a little bit more melanin. I was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
So negocio genial, or genial. You're probably Portuguese. Thank you I see that you're adding information. Welcome. I haven't seen your name before. So welcome. Thank you. And here's one of our favorites who's always offering information. So thank you. Carvalho.
That IMT thing, like if you Google IMT, it'll tell you the exact rates. That's the name. I couldn't remember. So thank you for posting that. The person who Negocios General, whoever that was, that said IMT.
IMT.
That's that name of the bands that we were all talking about that said if it's this or lower, no tax, this or this percentage tax. That's public information on those. And so I remember finding that somewhere, but I don't remember where. But that is the name of it. The IMT is that tax at scale.
One thing I do want to talk about, because I know you probably did this too, Twanna. I'm sure. Well, I think you had to. It's like one of the things that happens here in Portugal, at least my understanding is when you buy property, let's say you see a property, like you make an offer. If the seller agrees to your offer, you then sign a promissory contract.
Yes.
And that's a contract that's saying that both parties agree to complete this sale. You put down 10% or more, but we put down 10%. That money then if you back out, you lose it. If the owner backs out, they pay you double if that's how it's written in the promissory contract. Typically, that's how our lawyer wrote it. So it's one of those things that the moment you sign that offer, they want that money transferred like that day.
And it's not transferred to a
To an escrow.
Transferred to the owner.
Yes.
Exactly. By say the owner, you're not paying escrow, you're not paying third party, you're giving Bob or Nuno, you're giving that.
So the 3% earnest money, y'all.
Earnest money.
The 3% earnest money just went up to a
10%.
10% deposit here in Portugal. So Twanna, tell us about the $50,000 that the lady wanted from you, but couldn't move out of the place.
Oh, that was one of those, like, if you'll do this, you'll do that, whatever. So this was one of those. So this isn't even part of the 4. This was a person, beautiful views, beautiful gowns. It was like beautiful place. You looked out there, Cacilhas. So that was one of those where it was like on the other side of the water, literally one stop from Lisbon, facing Lisbon, beautiful skyline views and all, just gorgeous apartment. She said, here's the deal. Yeah, I'll sell it to you. And that was $250. It was like, wow, this is the best that I've seen. But what she wanted was, okay, you just give me 50,000 cash. Like you just need to give me 50,000 cash.
Yeah, it does sound crazy.
Please. Okay, you give me 50,000 cash. And then not only that after, when we go through all the selling stuff or whatever, I need time to pack. So you need to give me 6 months to live there. And then I'll move out afterwards. Then we've got that. So that was all.
Was she going to pay you rent for 6 months?
That's what I told her. I said, okay, so here's what would need to happen. We'd have to have 2 separate contracts. One is the contract to you sell this to me. And then the other is you are a short-term renter and here's the monthly rate. It's going to cover my entire mortgage and then some, because like I am now renting a place out.
Right.
So it's all these things. And I was like, and this is why I said, keep your core guiding light and don't, that wasn't part of the stuff that I wanted. And it's a good thing that I didn't do that, because Portuguese friends were like, ooh, tenant laws are very different here than in the US. So you could have found yourself with some bullshit, even if you had gone through with that, even if you gave her the money and she sold it and everything, trying to get someone out could be a pain in the ass. And so there was all kinds of things that it's like, I dodged a bullet there. And it's like, I can laugh about this stuff now, but when I was going through this, super fucking stressful, I had plenty of nights of crying on a friend's couch where I was just like, I can't keep doing this. It's like, you get excited. It's for anything, whether it's a new job or that you didn't get, you applied, you're in your 8th round, or a miscarriage for that child that you wanted is on your 3rd miscarriage, or the house that you now put in your 4th offer. When you've gone through something so much and it's disappointment and failure, it doesn't work out or whatever, it fucking wears on you and it's frustrating. And you keep your hopes up the next time and it happens again. And so it's like, the lesson that I found though, and all of that is like, I stuck with what I wanted. I dodged a lot of bullets, like a lot of things that didn't work out were things that it's like, it's a good thing. And so like, if you are in the side of where you're going through this process, or you're midway, or you went and didn't work, so you tuned into this to find the gems to tell you how to work, it's like, sometimes shit doesn't, you know, and there's not necessarily a reason when, why, or where. It's just
there is, because the best one is still waiting for you.
I believe.
That's right.
I believe
That's right. And it's going to be better than all of those in the form of a building with Halisi and Rick. So Jazzy Old Chick, we have put it out there in the universe, Geri and Alex. We want to buy a building, and we want to get together with, 3 or 4 other folks, buy a building, pay cash, take 2 of the apartments in it or something like that, and rent them out. Maybe one Airbnb, one for Americans like you guys are doing in the Algarve or whatever. So Jazzy Old Chick says, can you buy a freestanding house in Lisbon, or do you need to go outside of the city for a house?
You can find freestanding houses, but they will be very, very expensive.
And they may also be outside of where you think of Lisbon. Like it's
Outside
still
of the
a great
Like in the Estrella area,
Lores, baby.
and also by what's that? El Corte Inglés, we're by the Gulbenkian. I think I've seen some
I've seen
freestanding over there
So
as
have I.
well.
So
But
have
you can buy them, but they will cost you money.
And I'll be honest with you,
we do
I didn't want a
puzzle.
freestanding house. I did not want a yard anymore. I didn't want to deal with roof by myself. All that kind of like maintenance. I'm like retired. I do not want to deal with that.
I hear
don't
you.
mind paying part of the cost, but I don't want to be the sole person responsible to fix a roof.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
When
some
we
people, if that's what you want to do, please do it. But I'm saying, think about the kind of stuff you're getting into. If you buy a house, it's just like in the U.S. You're responsible for everything. We have some
Yeah.
friends here, Americans that were trying to buy. They bought some property and they're trying to build a house. The city was asking them to put in the sidewalk.
Yeah. Same in Denver. Same in
Yeah,
Denver.
I mean, so it's like they've already bought the property. They haven't even built the house, and they're going through all this zoning stuff. I was very clear with Jerry when we were buying. It's like, I do not want anything I cannot walk into today. I don't want to see something that, it'll be finished next year. Or we're doing, it's like, no, I have to be able to walk into it and I could actually move in there tomorrow.
Right.
I want to see the building. I want to see the actual apartment. I want to be able to turn on the plumbing. I want all of that before I say I will buy.
I hear you because the laws are so different. Jesse Old Chick, we also saw single family homes near the airport, not in Avalade, but we were staying in this other area about 5 minutes from the airport, and we saw some small houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. I forgot about a lot in what's our Junta, the public hospital area we have to go to. Olivais.
Yeah, there's some stuff in Olivais. Yeah.
Where I'm seeing a lot of people buy big houses for not a lot of money at all. Well, that's relative, but relatively not a lot of money at all. I can't pronounce it. My Portuguese will get better. I'll say that. My Portuguese will get better with time. I only arrived here in June, so it hasn't been that long. But there's a place, Setúbal is the name of the municipality.
Setúbal.
Yeah.
And the town is like Aoroti or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
that's along the line. So like if it's this way, so it's like here's from your direction. I'll do this backwards. This is Lisbon.
I didn't hear you spell it again.
Right? I can't
didn't hear
remember
you spell.
exactly. It's like Aerotiie.
Araya. That's where Araya.
She keeps adding a T in there.
Yes.
No. I think you're thinking of Oeiras, which is between Cascais and Lisbon. That's
Okay.
Oeiras.
This is down south in Setúbal.
Exactly.
Oh, you're talking about Setúbal.
Exactly.
No.
Go towards there. There's a town, and maybe some of the Portuguese people know this better than I do. Obviously, there's a golf course, and there's a golf course. It's near the beach, and they have house. So if you're not like, I need to be in the middle of Lisbon and going out to 3 a.m. and I don't want a car, like you're like, I want a house with some land and a pretty garden, and I want a reasonable size price with not a lot of money. That's where a lot of people are buying. A lot of Americans, at least.
A lot of Americans are buying down in Setúbal.
Yeah, and you can get your Navigant card works down there as well. And so, Greta, the banks here in Lisbon, the ones that we mentioned before, like Millennial and Nova Bank and stuff like that, those are the ones that we see everywhere now. There's no bank that's on the size of Chase or Bank of America here because they might. Millennial actually might be as far as the EU is concerned, but it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
And you don't Millennium and Novo Banco and Santander and BPI, they're like the same as Bank of America or Wells Fargo to me in terms of like the type of business they do. They're big. They have branches everywhere.
Yes,
Right.
yes. But as far as doing dirty deals and dirty loans and targeting Black people to give them bad home loans and stuff, like Bank of America, Chase, and Wells Fargo, I don't know that is the case.
No, I didn't feel that.
Well, and that's one advantage of using a mortgage broker is that you're not walking in. You're just a name on some documents, and the bank just has to look at that. They don't see your face.
That's true.
They have to give you a deal based on your merits versus what you look like when you came in and what you were wearing.
Right.
Ernestine, I don't know what a BECU or a BOA is. Do you guys know those?
Bank of
acronyms?
America.
BOA is Bank of America, I believe.
What is BEC?
BOA is Bank of America.
A credit union, maybe?
Yeah, so BE might be a
Bank of
credit
America does
union.
that. I mean, my understanding, Ernestine, if this is what you're asking, you can get a loan in America for a property here. My understanding is that people have done that. So if that's what you're talking about, I would check with your bank to see if they loan money for international properties. Are the townhomes with yards in Lisbon?
Yes, there are some townhomes with yards, because what it is that they'll have the, the facade, the front-facing facade on the sidewalk, but in the back, there's like courtyards.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the building we're in now,
There's
you would think in the middle of the building is this big courtyard that all the people in this building can use. And you don't see it in the street.
So, and same with ours. Well, everyone can't use the courtyard. Actually, the garden apartments have that space. But then the building next door, they have a rooftop garden as well that the whole building can use.
That is a good example of a checklist item. Do you need a green space?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of detail you need to have of what you're looking for, like not just a number of bedrooms and baths, but do you need a terrace? Do you need a view?
Yep.
You need a parking space? Do you need green space? Do you need room for a washer and dryer? Because I need a dryer. I want a dryer.
Don't feel guilty about it either, because I felt like, oh, that shouldn't be on my need to, like you said, I need a dryer. It's like, don't feel guilt. Mine, I need a river view. And at first I was like, oh, do I really need that? Or maybe that's just a want or whatever. But it's like, no, the peace and solitude I feel when I look out at green trees and water and openness, as someone who's from small town, born in Chicago born, but raised in rural Illinois, it's like, I can't look out of my window and see other buildings facing me. I need to be able to see out and see nature. That is a need for me. And that was important for me to recognize that and be true to that and not feel guilty, being like, am I being spoiled by saying I need a river view? No, that's what I need.
For your peace of mind.
Yep.
For your mental health, and I would have said that was not necessary, because there's some streets in Avalon that are just so cute, and they've got the balconies and they're just so cute, but they don't have, like, we're across the street from a park and we look out every day and we see, besides the kids playing, which I love, we see trees, and we've got, evergreen trees that are always going to be green. We saw the leaves change and all of that stuff, and it was just lovely. Exactly. So I would not have put that on our list before, but now definitely.
Well, and I think it also depends on balancing that, because we wanted a river view here in Parkton and Sois. So we technically we can see the river if we look out the window and lean, but we are 2 blocks from the river. So I can walk out of the door, I'll be at the river in 2 blocks, and I can walk miles along the river and have all this green space. So it's like a balance where how high is that need? So maybe for Twanna, that is more important. For me, it was important, but when this apartment we first saw, it's like it didn't have that, but it was so close. It's like, well, you sacrifice, and it had space for a dryer. So, well, then it met that need, but not, you kind of have to balance what your needs are on your checklist, and then which are truly that you must have and that are nice to have.
Exactly.
So we actually did that on a list we sent to a couple of people that were thinking about helping us, that we actually had required things and then a list of nice to haves.
Okay.
Yes.
And required things for like 2 bedroom, 2 bath. That was minimum. If you come, 1 bedroom, don't even show us.
Don't even show us.
Yeah. Don't even show us.
Is it harder to find a home? So Flip Queen channel. Welcome. In the city of Lisbon, first of all, besides being very, 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 very old, it's physically small as well. And so the majority, even when we were in Madrid and in Barcelona, and not so much London, we didn't see because it was at night, but in Italy as well. Yeah. Most of the home dwellings were apartments / condo / townhome
Right.
attached multifamily homes that we've seen in the major cities here in Europe. Picture Manhattan. There's just not the kind of space for everyone to have an individual house with a yard and all of that.
Right.
But as we said, most buildings do have, not most, at least a good portion do have apartments that have a garden. As a matter of fact, the apartment Twanna has a huge balcony on it with, space that she can put trees and a small garden and all of that. So, yeah.
And then Lisbon, if you're in the city, Lisbon is really good about having green spaces dispersed throughout.
Yes.
That,
So
and
walking,
no one calls the police on you if you're just sitting there. Okay,
Yes.
you can sit and enjoy the public spaces.
Definitely, you can sit there and enjoy.
Yeah, you can share your
Like, that's
drink of
real.
choice.
There's no Karen or Ken who's going to come up. There are
Well, there's a
kiosks.
Karen here, but she's really nice.
Literally, her name is Karen.
Wanting to change because I know so many Karens that are nice people.
No
I've been actually
Beckys.
wanting to change it to like Nellie Olson.
Right.
Remember Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie?
You're
I
aging
think the
yourself,
name
but
should really be
yes.
Nellie's.
Yes, and yes. And yeah, a lot of the parks have kiosks where you can get some beer, some wine, a heavy snack, a light snack, and all of that. And so,
Yeah, actually, our place in Portimão has a place about 2 blocks from us. It's a little park, and it has a pond. It has ducks and geese and chickens running around, and there's a kiosk, and you can sit there.
Here, why have we not been invited to your house in Portimão?
Well, now it's rented out. So,
But that's the kind of thing. It's right there. And when the person that we rented to, when we showed it to him, he and his son came, and we walked them over there, and they were all excited. They're taking pictures of the chickens. They're like, "This is like we're in a city," but then you walk here, and it feels like you're not in the city.
Yeah,
because now it's like this green area that's just right in the middle. That was really nice. It's a very peaceful. I actually sat there once. Geri didn't come with me, but I sat there and just had a beer. I was an old man watching the ducks and the turtles in the pond.
And we are in walking distance of the castle that has all of these gorgeous
St. George's Castle.
Yeah. What are they called? It starts with a P. The birds with the plumes.
Peacocks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just had a senior moment there.
And they just walk right up on you.
Yeah, they're just walking around. It's beautiful. So is Caldas de Rainha.
Castle St. George?
No, Caldas de Rainha. Caldas de Rainha.
Yeah. Is that part of the Silver Coast? I don't know.
I don't know it. Okay.
Do you guys know Alex and Geri?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
But we haven't been. But the Silver Coast, our Rich Journey, they have their property over in the Silver Coast, and they've had beautiful homes with lots of land.
Yes, and not for crazy prices either. Alex and Geri
and reasonable prices. Yes.
So, I'm
that
assuming
there.
She wants the name of the place where your house is, your condo is.
It's Portimão. Portimão. Portimao. Portimão.
And the A with the little squiggly on top. Portimão.
Do you actually own your land where you can will or transfer to your kids, or will the land ownership expire after certain? Like parts of Africa and in Mexico. So no, it's not like Mexico or parts of Africa where it's like a 99-year lease or something like that. No.
It is. You own it, and actually here because one of the apartment we got outbid on. One of the things that the lawyer had to look at is there were like 5 different siblings that owned it, and they had to all agree to sell it. You couldn't have like 2 or 3 siblings sell. They all had to agree to it. So for us, we have this one child. He just gets it 100%. We don't. But even if we had 2 children, we couldn't say, well, he gets it and the other one doesn't. It's like you can't do that in Portugal. The children have to share it equally.
Yeah, and
And they
that's
have to agree equally to sell.
that's ridiculous. That can become problematic when you have
It can
five,
be problematic.
It-
That's one of the things that you should ask, put on your list, how many people own this property, because that can be a problem if they're not living in Portugal and
Because they need to sign,
they're living in
yeah.
another country,
Brazil or Africa or
because
something.
they have to sign that promissory note, and all 5, 6, 10, 20 of them have to sign it.
Yeah.
There's
Greta,
negatives to that, but they're positive. So
right?
Somewhere
Exactly.
where it fell apart on the day of, 2 of the 5 siblings didn't show up for the signing.
See?
Oh,
See? Greta, I have not heard of anyone of African descent. I'm gonna put it that way. Any Black person that I know who's renting them out, that has an apartment here that they're renting out. But that sounds like a Black in Portugal question, and I bet you somebody in there knows.
Probably.
well, I mean, we were doing that. We just have a renter right now.
Yeah. Well, she was saying in the city of Lisbon.
Oh, in the city of
oh
Lisbon,
yeah,
yes.
no, that's the
Is it my
problem.
imagination? I noticed a lot of homes outside of the city look like ruins.
Yeah. And I had seen an interesting TikTok, and they said, you think you want to buy that ruin that's in the middle of the country, but resources are limited, and contractors are really, really busy. So you're competing for contractors, you're competing for resources, and that, build up date that you had planned for a year turns into years, because you're all competing for the same contractors and the same building materials and everything. So it gets really hard to get things done, when you're trying to fix up a
Place.
ruin or
have a place built, or
Yeah.
and that's not even counting all the things that you have to get through the neighborhood junta approved.
Yeah.
That's
But
kind
it's my understanding the reason why that's happening while there are places that look neglected, basically, like there's not anyone living there and there's no one care, is what Alex said earlier about these multiple people owning it. And so
Right.
a place gets
Mhm.
left to 5 kids and none of them are there. What I've heard, and I don't know all the details about this, is that Portugal is going to start charging for empty spaces, like a habitation, non-habitation tax or whatever it's been called. But maybe one of the Portuguese people in the chat can talk more about, or can leave comments about that. But something that I've been hearing a lot for people who are interested in buying property is once that well, 2 things. One, they're going to start taxing and charging fees for the people who have these empty places.
Abandoned places.
Yeah, abandoned places. And so when that happens, people might be more eager to sell, because if you're not paying anything, who cares, right? But if you actually have to pay now for this place, people might kind of
you need to incentivize them to do something.
Exactly.
Which is why the
Yeah.
government's doing it. So that's one. And then the other thing is they're undertaking, there's no MLS in Portugal as there's in the US. So every building has its own numbers. So you know exactly where they are, what they've sold for over the years. You can look it up on Zillow, all of that. That doesn't exist right now in Portugal, but the beginning makings of that is happening. They're starting with the rural areas and they're doing a survey so they can take note of what the properties are, where are they, and kind of start doing that. So those 2 things together appear to me, and I'm making this part up, those 2 are true, but connecting the dots, it looks to me like there's going to be more stuff in the market once it happens.
Which hopefully will bring down the prices of some of these places that it's like,
Mhm.
you're asking
some
what
of that,
for what?
Yeah. Some of that goes back to what you're saying, Twanna, like in those rural areas, I agree with you. I don't think they have them numbered. I think in some of the more modern areas, like where we bought our place in Portimão, it's got a unique number. We got the list of the building details, all the floor plans, the electrical. I mean, and in fact, the agent told us, hold on to that, because if anyone ever asks, you have to pay for this again if you don't have it. So we have this binder with the electrical plans, the plumbing plans, the structural plans of the whole building.
Oh, that's great.
And all of everything's numbered. It's kind of interesting, but
Yep. Same is true in the US. If you don't have the original plans and you need to do anything that has to get permitted, you got to go down there and pay to get the city
To
to
get
give
those,
you
yeah.
the original plans. So, so Jackie's asking about melanin people down in the Algarve.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere. I mean, I would say this. I mean, I know that question comes up a lot in Black groups on Facebook and other places about living in Portugal and other places. I don't know about other countries, but for Portugal, if you've experienced racism in the US, it is never going to be the same here. I'm not going to say there's not racism here, because there's definitely some Black neighborhoods where there's probably a police presence that's different than in Lisbon. But in Lisbon and in Portimão, where I've been, I have never seen anyone harassed because of their race. Is there some racism? Do people look at maybe? But it's not as overt as in the US.
Yeah, when we were walking around Portimão, I saw the African ladies, selling their jewelry and, braiding, getting your hair braided. They have the pictures of the braids, and they're sitting there in the corner if you want to get your hair braided. And I see them selling their wares, the wooden
Carvings and stuff.
Art, all this other kind of stuff. So they're there, everybody's there. So, and they're working, they have businesses, and so.
I mean, it's not, again, I don't think I've ever felt, I mean, again, I don't look the same as Geraldine. Yeah, I mean, my father looks like Geraldine, but so I get a different perspective from people, but I don't think Geri's ever felt uncomfortable any place we've went here, where, like, oh, these people are looking at me, except maybe Cascade. Remember you went into that one store?
No.
Okay. Well. I don't know. I think just in general, though, nothing is like the U.S. This is
nothing.
Even if it was a little race, if there's some racism here, the scale down compared to the U.S. is so different.
Yeah.
It is not,
and I've never gotten it from institutions. It's when I could say it might have been racism, it's always someone who appears to be about 80 years old plus.
Mm-hmm.
And
then sometimes
and in the grocery store. It's always in the grocery store.
Sometimes I don't even know if that's always racism. Some of it is classism, because they know that you probably have a lot of money. And it's like, they know the Americans are coming here, have this money, and they're like, they just assume that every American here is a millionaire.
I would agree with that, because
and they're like, I'm making 700 euros a month, and these people come in here and they can buy whatever they want, and
because the one lady that we ran into, and she was snippy with you or something.
Yeah,
she couldn't even afford to pay for all her groceries.
Oh, she couldn't.
Nope. She had to leave something out because she was counting out change, and I almost offered to pay for it.
But she shouldn't have gotten an attitude.
She didn't get an attitude.
But that's heartbreaking, and so that leads me to believe it hasn't. She just might have been having a bad day, period. Because I truly have never ever been in the position where I could not pay for my groceries, and I thank God for that. Maybe when I was in college, but then I wasn't trying to buy nothing but some top ramen. So, as far as the tiny house movement goes, Greta. Christina and Aman are building, they built one and they're building another now. So, but again, the whole notion of a tiny house means you have to have land. And there's just not a lot of land in the city of Lisbon. So tiny apartments all day long. things that they're calling apartments, is like, really? All day long. But you'd have to have land to put the tiny house on, and there's just too many people to give up that much space for one dwelling.
Yeah,
is what I'm thinking.
Within Lisbon,
when scouting, but now that's not the district of Lisbon, because the district of Lisbon goes all the way up to Mafra and all of that, and there's probably open spaces up there, and you're just a train ride away. When scouting a neighborhood city, how do you determine if it's a safe area?
I just assume it's a safe area because it's Lisbon, because it's Portugal.
Well, I would say we went to a store here. We went to that Conforte furniture store. We were on a bus, and it was still Lisbon, but you could see the difference in the people getting on the bus as we got further out of Lisbon.
Yeah.
What
Like-
that have to do with the
No, I'm saying with some people
Would
look at that
assume.
and say, I don't feel safe because
Now
I don't see enough people that look like me.
So,
Now,
so,
again,
yeah,
for me,
definitely.
I was fine, but other people, you know, Lisbon as a whole there's not a lot of crime. The crime here is crime of opportunity. People will want to
Pickpockets.
pickpocket you, steal something when you're not looking. The odds here of getting like mugged, like a New York mugging with a knife or a gun is much lower.
Yeah.
However,
No,
if you're not paying attention to your stuff and you turn around and you just, taking pictures, someone could grab your bag and take it away.
And
you
so
know.
we heard from these other YouTubers that they're, pickpocketing is going up, down in the square. I don't know. I have kind of a anti-theft backpack that I carry. The zippers are not visible. You can't get to them easily, and so it is what it is. But heck, they're snatching purses in LA. So let's not get it twisted. You can be
Correct.
sitting at a cafe, on the sidewalk cafe, and have your purse right there next to you, and guys are running and snatching the purses and going. So that happens everywhere.
Yeah.
However,
Just being aware. Yeah, you got to be aware of.
you got to be aware. There are you can tell, Rhonda, like I said, when Rick said you got me walking through the hood. So one area that is a little, I'm going to say you can tell that the residents have lower incomes based upon what you see. Now, does that mean it's sketchy? No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Was I on a little bit higher of an alert? Yes. Did I feel unsafe? Not at all. And that is the area of Martin Moniz and to the east of Amarant Boulevard. So
Yeah, Martin, I would agree. And then Geri for a while went to this hairdresser. Was she in Amadora?
Yeah, but it was safe.
But
It's
we
totally
actually
safe.
asked someone. We had this Portuguese woman. She said, "Oh, it's okay, but just don't go there at night." And we got there, and definitely more people of color, but it did not feel unsafe at all.
exactly.
It just felt like people that, again, their income may not be as high, but that doesn't mean that they're robbing each other.
Exactly.
They
And
need
I
a place to
really
live.
wanted to point that out because just because it's a lower income does not mean that it's unsafe. And there's some white YouTubers saying, stay away from there. They're selling drugs and there's prostitution.
They're doing
That
that
still does not mean that you're going to get robbed.
Yeah.
Correct.
And even though I said,
No, go ahead, Rick.
even though I said that you take me to the hood, I was joking. First of all, I mean it from the look, but I never felt scared.
Never ever felt
threatened
unsafe.
or anything like that.
But then this is coming from, I'm from LA, y'all. I mean, yes, I lived in Denver, but I'm from born and raised in LA. So I don't know what unsafe is supposed to like. I know what unsafe is supposed to feel like and look like, and I have not seen that here.
Yeah. And I grew up in East Oakland, and I will tell you, everybody knows. I mean, if you live in the U.S. in any kind of major city, there is some part of that city that you probably don't go to, even if you live there. When I lived in Sacramento, there was parts of Sacramento that you did not go to at night if you didn't live there. Some because it was drugs and stuff, and some because it was KKK. Literally in Sacramento. We went to a party. She took me to a Christmas Halloween party once. The person in their backyard had a Confederate flag up on their fence. I'm like, what am I doing at this party?
How did we get
Yeah,
here?
I was not expecting it. I wasn't expecting it.
And this
But
was
that's
a work colleague.
It was in Sacramento. It was real.
Real
Yeah.
in it. But again, there's parts,
Yeah. I was going to say, one of the things I like about Rhonda's question, though, it says, when scouting a neighborhood, city, how do you determine it's a safe area? It's interesting what Halisi says about being from LA and what Alex said about being from Oakland. And that's the thing, safety is very personal, right? So like we're all from different places. We all have different barriers, barometers of what feels safe for us. right? Like I've spent most of my adult life living in big cities. I feel much safer walking on 57th and 3rd in New York City than I do in some small town where there's nobody around. Like it's like,
Yes,
it's quiet.
yes.
There's nobody, it freaks me out because I'm like, anything happens, there's nobody here. But if I'm in a city and there's a lot of people around, it's like, oh, there's a shit ton of people here. It's safe. So it's like, I love the question. And I think the answer is in the question itself. It's like, how do you feel safe? It's like, make that list. What makes you feel safe? You know, do you need a big city? Do you need a smaller city?
Do you
Do you
need people
like,
around all the time? It does feel creepy not seeing people walking the streets. It's like, where in the heck is everybody? But Twanna, you're a single woman. It's so you're probably looking at different things than we would be looking at, right? I
that
mean,
is probably exactly why I piped up and I was like, wait a minute, everybody's saying these things, but it's just because I had one friend who lives here who was, I felt, they didn't intend it that way, but for me, I felt giving me a hard time because I was saying, well, that area is not safe. And they were like, oh, it's a super safe neighborhood. I'm like, you have a man who lives in your home with you. You speak Portuguese. You've been here for a long time. I have not been here very long. I don't know the areas very long. I'm a single woman who goes out very late at night and may come home
yes,
tipsy.
she
3, 4 in the
does.
morning. My view of what I need to feel safe is personal, and I'm okay with that. It is no one else's ability even to tell you what is and is not a safe area because that's a personal choice for you.
Yeah.
And so I would say,
But
as you think about what your situation, if you're raising kids, maybe you don't feel as safe in the middle of a big city. So it's personal.
and then how far do you have to walk? Like if you don't want to do Ubers all the time or Bolts all the time, how far do you have to walk from the train area to your
Right.
place? What does that walk look like? And so, I think
See, I only care if it's uphill.
I think, the elements of what is safe and what are not safe areas apply probably here the same as they do in the States. This is a westernized country, right? And so same things that you would look for in the States are the same kinds of things that you would look for here, in general. But know that there's going to if you're in the city proper, there should be people walking around the streets almost all night because everything's late here.
Twanna will be out there.
Twanna will be out there in them streets.
I'm gonna be able to get shots with you. Be like, hey.
Does your U.S. credit score mean anything in Europe or Portugal? Did they ask you guys for your credit scores?
Yes, we had to submit. We got our Equifax scores to the broker, and I guess he distributed that. Now I don't know if all the banks required it, but maybe some did, and so he just asked for it so that he would have it when necessary.
Yeah, it
Okay.
wasn't like it was determined as far as our interest rate or loan amount. It did seem to be.
Yeah, I don't
They
think.
just want to know if you have the cash for the deposit and the taxes and fees,
And then
and the ability to pay the monthly mortgage. So they look at your income
Yeah,
more than
anything.
your
yeah.
credit report.
I think they wanted the credit report because they do want to base your income and your expenses because they want to know what you have to pay for in
In the
addition to
States.
this property. So, they want, and credit report will show, hey, if you've got a balance, you can't just pretend and say, oh, I only pay $200 a month. It's like, no, look at this balance over here. You're paying
Right.
more.
Right.
But I don't think they look at it the same as the U.S., but we did have to get it.
Part of our
As part of our
application
application.
for mortgage.
Did
And it
you,
also matters if
Twanna?
you're single or coupled. So if you're one person, so say you make up a number, a salary, right? You're one person and you make that, or split that in half and say you're two people who collectively make that. The banks prefer two people who collectively make that than one person who makes that.
So one person making $6,000 a month is not as good as two people making $3,000 a month.
Correct.
Because if one person loses their job, all the incomes.
In theory.
Yeah.
Yep. They said it's a risk factor. So if you're a single person looking to
It's
purchase,
discrimination.
Well, that's why they want that life insurance policy.
Mhm.
Another thing that we had that was new, came into effect April this year is if you're buying a condominium, especially if you're doing a mortgage now, and even if without, the owner is supposed to give you a report from the condo association if they have anything in arrears.
Like anything.
Because
Oh.
once you buy the place, it doesn't follow the previous owner, it follows the current owner. So if the other owner had not paid their dues for 6 months and now you're the owner, that's who you owe it.
You
It's the
absorb
current
that
owner.
responsibility.
Oh,
Yes. So that was a new law that got passed that made that a requirement,
Okay.
which is actually a good thing because it means that even if there's something in the rears, maybe that's part of the deal you make. Hey, I'll pay for all this so you don't have to deal. But I think in the past that didn't happen, and people bought things and found out
and
this
got
person hasn't been
surprised.
paying for a year.
Right.
You know.
See,
So-
that's why you've got to hire the professionals, guys. Don't just come here thinking that it works the same as it works in the
doesn't.
States. Geri, what were you going to say?
I just saw the question. The question said, is it expensive to purchase a dryer? It is not.
It is not.
Mm-mm.
It's
just weird. It's because it doesn't, you know how in America it's vented to the outside of the
and a drain.
apartment. It's like it just collects the water from the clothes, and we have to take out this
reservoir
and dump the water
Huh.
while it dries
Okay.
your
I
clothes.
was wondering how they vented.
Our dryer at least has, all we do is plug it into the wall. There are no drains, there's no venting.
Interesting.
You just remove that reservoir and then you clean the lint out. But again, they're cheap.
And it dries your clothes.
They were not expensive. They were not ridiculously expensive. They're not common here, so you will not have a large selection, and you will probably have to get it in white.
Hardships. So one of our Portuguese friends wants to know, why should the police be called if you're just spending time in the park?
Oh, it's an American thing. It's an American thing.
Yes.
It's a Nelly thing.
Who would like to answer more specifically?
Well, I mean, again, because the people on this call are mostly people of color. In America, if you're in a lot of cities and you look like you don't belong there, or you're not doing something worthwhile, which is because of your skin color, you're not, people will call the police on you.
Yeah.
Even if you live in that neighborhood, I don't recognize them. They look suspicious.
Yeah.
Even though if it was someone else of a different skin color, they would just ignore it. But
so
it's unfortunate, but
anti-blackness is everywhere. That doesn't mean everyone is anti-black. I'm not saying that, but the notion of it and finding this person here and that person there is everywhere. In America, it is ubiquitous. And if like here, public spaces are meant to be used by the public. In America, public spaces are meant to be used by certain people who look a certain way, and usually they don't look like they would be in our family. If you are in a neighborhood that is like 80% African American or Black and brown folks, then the police probably will not get called. But if you happen to live in a neighborhood where you're in the minority, where I would be in the minority, and I'm just sitting there chilling and not actively going on a run, and even sometimes then, like if you're actively doing the thing that the park is meant for, you could still have the police called on you because you look suspicious, you look like somebody who, or whatever. By and large, every single Black person that I've ever met has been harassed by the police, and I don't know any criminals.
Yeah,
So,
and it could be life-threatening when the police are called on you.
Yeah, it a lot of times does not end well. The happy thing is that you're only arrested for no reason at all. There are a certain population in the United States that think it is their duty to police us, to police Black folks. So,
and that's more of the culture. I mean, even though Portugal was probably the start of the slave trade, that wasn't the culture here of slavery the same way as it was in the U.S., where to the scope, and it's just built into the U.S. That's just how people in the U.S. think things are. Is that you have classes of people, and the class is not the wealth; it's also the race. Here, there's class where there's wealth, but I mean, it's a little bit the same. But it's I don't know. I think when I hear that question is it's never as bad here as it'll never be as bad as the U.S. I mean, the U.S. is probably one of
That
the
is a
worst places you
special
can live.
kind of racism. It is
Yes.
a special cultivated
Yes.
racism on steroids. And yeah, and
It's
class
been
has nothing to
simmering,
do with
built
it.
in, simmering. Just
Exactly. We know plenty of athletes, plenty of actors and actresses and hedge fund managers and if you're driving a nice car, you didn't earn it. You probably are a drug dealer, and so we're going to pull you over. So it doesn't matter. You cannot respectability. You just can't get away from it. It doesn't matter. If you're dressed nicely, then you stole the clothes. If you dress too poorly, then you're poor and you're robbing somebody. There's just no middle ground. There's no easy thing, and that's why we're here. So, what is the Silver Coast? So you've heard of Nazaré, BP, where the big, huge 100-foot waves come and the surfers love it. That is the Silver Coast. It is basically in between Lisbon and Porto on the Atlantic coast.
They call the Algarve area the Gold Coast, right?
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought at one time they may have done that.
I think so. One time.
So do they have something similar to title insurance, or is that what the attorney was for?
No.
Well, I mean, we'd have to look at all the different.
The attorney does the title search. They
Yeah.
make sure that the property is
So
available for sale, and they make sure there isn't any liens on the property, that kind of thing, and they write your offer contract.
And also, like for us, when we bought, we have a mortgage, a smaller mortgage on it, but the person we bought from had a mortgage. So like when we were at the deed signing, the bank is doing several checks. They're writing one check to pay off the other person's mortgage. They're writing another check to them for the what's left. And then they wrote another check to them for the contents of the thing which we agreed to pay. And then we separately wrote or transferred our money for the taxes and the fees.
Okay.
So there were a lot of different things.
the lawyer
But
makes
having that professional person, like you're saying, Elise, is in hindsight. I mean, the amount of money in the bigger scope, if you're spending hundreds of thousands of euros, it's worth it to just.
It really is, y'all. It really is. And so we even used a professional to read the lease for this apartment. And we've heard scams where, especially if you are renting from outside of Portugal, and because you have to for the D7 visa and maybe
Right.
for some of the other visas as well. We've heard folks paying money without a contract for an apartment that's already rented out to somebody else. Like there's two other YouTubers who said they've had like 2 or 3 people come knocking at their door talking about, this is my apartment. They're like, we've been living here for 6 months. What you talking about? And so it's really, really important to, like, we used Relocate to Portugal. Gail over there, she's got a team. She's got attorneys and whatnot. Read the lease. She made sure that our landlord had the power of attorney from his father-in-law, who actually owns the place, so that he had the right to rent it out. So she checked that. And then she checked to make sure that the Portuguese said what the English said it said, because the English doesn't count.
To make sure.
And I would say on top of that,
Halise,
Halise, one thing that can really be like even an additional thing is ask the landlord to give you the registration of the lease with the tax authority. That is
we
a
did
unique
that.
document.
Yeah, we got that
because,
too.
Yeah, because that's a unique number that shows this has already been rented and the taxes have been paid.
Yeah.
And so this is legal. That's a whole different thing than just someone, a handwritten lease, because the tax authority thing is different. And we had that when we came here on our visa. We actually had that document in addition to the lease that we signed.
Yes. Thank you for that. I forgot to mention that, because the other place, y'all, that we were trying to get on the other side of the river, she had not registered with the Financia office. And I'm not going to say she was doing it under the table. I'm just going to say that she could not provide me with the document.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the consulate wants to see that document. So we had that document, as well as the POA, as well as we got the emailed receipt from the Financia office with our NIF numbers on there or tax ID numbers telling us that, yes, we see the landlord has said you guys paid your rent. Here's your receipt from the Financia office. All of that went into our package to apply. So we're going to wrap it up here. So just get your questions in. I'm going to speed through this. What about our hair? Y'all, we have, okay, Sassy Linda, welcome. One of the reasons why we are here is because we blend. I'm talking about Rick and I. We blend. Unlike Mexico, which we love Mexico, but we were always looked at as tourists, which means the vendors are coming up to you trying to hawk their stuff. With that comes a lack of folks who understand our hair. Here, we blend.
You ain't got a problem.
You can find folks to do your hair everywhere. You can find the goop that you want to put on your hair. It might not be the brand you're used to, but there is goop.
It might be a better brand.
Might be a better brand. There is goop for our hair here as well.
They have Mael products, As I Am, lots of products.
She goes the train station, the Orient train station right near us. There's like this African or hair product store there, right in the train station. And they got a bunch of stuff.
Almeda here, and they have a bunch of stuff. And then my barber's in the Almeda train stop off of the Green Line.
Yeah.
He's Black Brazilian.
He don't speak no English.
Lots of Black Brazilians who do hair.
Yes. So
I
he's good.
the Alameda Station, the red line. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, that is where the red and the green meet. But since the green is a superior line, no. Okay. How many times did you visit Portugal, and how long before you made the move? Okay, Geri and Alex, how many times did you visit before you moved here?
Once.
We visited in April 2018, and we had our visa appointment at the embassy April the next year. Within a year, we went back and got rid of everything and decided to move.
Make the move.
Okay. On our vacation, yeah.
I love it.
But I mean, we had thought about retiring early, but this just sped it up.
Yes. Twanna?
Zero for me. I decided I was moving, and from the day that I landed, I was like, this trip is day one. If I hate it, then the number of days that I've lived here is very short. If I love it, then I go back. So for 6 months, I did 2 months in Portugal, 2 months in the US, 2 months Portugal, 2 months in the US to kind of see if I could balance between the two. And in the end, I decided, no, I'm just moving here full on. So November through May, 2 months on and off. And then June forward, I've been here 100% in Portuguese resident.
We visited in June 2022, and we had our appointment with the consulate in August 2022. So 2 months. We already knew that we probably were going to like it, and we made up our mind, what, first week?
Yeah, pretty much first week. I mean, and we met all these people right here
in the first week.
And they convinced us. So.
It's like cool people, cool food, beautiful, charming, and all of that stuff. We're here. Consulate or pay consult fee to Halisi's friend found an apartment. He knows neighborhoods. Oh, thank you. Yay. Yeah, Rossini's great. And he does know the neighborhoods. He does. And I mean, this apartment is so much more than we thought we were going to get. It just is. It just is. So is your guest still on the apartment purchasing hunt? Don't give up. Greta's such a sweetheart.
That is so sweet. Yes, the answer to that is yes. I'm still on the hunt, but passively. Right now, I have friends. I've made way more Portuguese friends. I'm knowing the area more. And so as things come to me, like I've been very clear about exactly what I'm looking for. Everybody watches knows now too. So as things come, I'll look at it if it makes sense. And if not, then it doesn't. I'm in a place now that I'm renting, and I signed a 3-year lease, and I have flexibility to get out. So I'm good. And it's very, very low rent, so you can save more money. Yeah.
So Samantha, Ajuda is in the middle of the city. So you go in and out of it. To me, you go in and out of it without even knowing that you're there. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when when I look at my pictures, I know I've been there because the pictures you can see them on the map on your phone, right? Because Big Brother's always watching. And I know where it is on the map, but I don't know when I walk into Ajuda and when I'm walking out. Do you guys? I mean, it's older. It's in the historic district. That's one thing that we can tell you. It's in the historic area, which means older buildings, which means you've got to be careful about the plumbing and the electricity and things like that, and make sure that it's been updated. There's
And
still
the
places,
insulation.
and
And
the
the insulation
insulation.
when it's
There's
cold.
these concrete walls, and we're in an older. I'd say this is probably. It looks to me like early 1900s, late 1800s. It's post, the fire, earthquake, and all of that stuff. And still, it's not insulated, but he has put heaters in all of the main rooms. So we're good to go that way. But yeah, sweetheart. And then I don't know about you, but I need to flush my toilet paper. Now, if you're Portuguese, don't come into the comments talking about everywhere I've been, you can flush, because I just left a place over the weekend where we couldn't flush. Oh, it was at the you're not supposed to flush at the movie theater that we went to.
Really?
Yeah.
See? I don't know. So, one
yeah.
thing I do want to say, Elise, that applies to renting or buying. If you're coming here, when you're budgeting, if you're American budgeting, take into account that whatever money you get per month from whatever sources, there's always going to be fluctuations in the exchange rate.
Right.
Yes.
So you can't just think to yourself, oh, I have $5,000 a month to spend. I have 25, whatever that number is. Some months that's going to be great, but sometimes that exchange rate will knock off $200 or $300 or 200 or 300 euros off of what you can transfer. So you got to really take that into consideration. And even when you buy your place, if you're transferring large amounts of money, you may think, oh, I have, $250,000 in the bank. Well, that doesn't mean you're going to get 250,000 euros.
Right.
You may only get 210,000 euros.
Yes.
You're like, 40,000. It's like, you got to think about that.
Yes.
It can kill you sometimes.
It can be.
Yep. That's why I know what the rate is, because we try to transfer money when the exchange rate is at its most favorable and 1 quarter at a time. Okay. So that you're not dealing with the daily. You don't want to transfer money every month because you got all those fees. You've got the wiring fee, and then your bank here might charge you a couple bucks, to receive the wire and all of that. And so if you're doing that on a month-to-month basis, you're losing money every month. So minimum of quarterly for us. And I'm looking every day, refresh. I see a rate that looks good. And, and what you see is not necessarily what your bank is going to give you either. So found that out when we were in the black, and it was like €1 equaled like $1.02 or $1.03.
Yeah.
My bank did not give me that. They're like, oh, that was for that moment in time. We're going to give you $1.01, or we're going to give you $1 to €1. So
yeah, but it's just something to keep in mind, and especially when we're talking about buying property, that's a huge amount of money, and that is a big factor in terms of what you can afford here.
And you can only transfer so much every day.
It depends.
So if you're trying to, get a large amount of money together to pay your part of or just to buy your property, you have to plan it. And also I'm not sure, but I think even the banks, your accounts are only insured up to 250.
That's like the U.S.
Like the U.S.
Yeah.
So
Like the US,
you can't. Even if you're transferring money quarterly, I mean, you're not going to want to put 500,000 in one account and
just leave it there.
And leave it there till you find your house.
Yeah, no.
As an American, you have to be mindful that if you have more than $10,000 in a foreign account, you have to file an FR. So you have to paperwork
Yeah.
explain to the U.S. government that you have that money in a foreign account too. So
Yeah.
if you lose all your money thinking, I'm going to buy this house at this point, and you don't, then you've got more than 10K sitting in a foreign bank account. You have to tell the government.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to your tax person about that now. So I haven't heard of anybody getting their cell phone snatched by motorcycle drivers. And first of all, there's so much doggone traffic. They might be hard pressed to keep going. You might be able to catch up with them on foot in
Maybe
some
on the
cases.
scooter or bicycle, but not on a motorcycle.
Yeah. But you know
But
what? I mean, I
have you
wouldn't say
heard
it's
of?
impossible. I
It's
mean,
not impossible. No, it's not
there's so
impossible.
many cafes here where you're like right on the street, and that's the charm of this. You can sit out there and have a dinner or a drink,
Right.
but just don't put your purse or your phone right up on the edge of the table and not pay attention to it. I mean, that's to me. I wouldn't do that in the U.S.,
In the U.S. Same.
let alone here. So you know.
Yeah. I've
and
never
again-
gotten anything snatched, baby.
Yeah.
Never. No, I'm from
But
LA.
again, I guarantee you, somebody here has had their phone snatched.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure.
But don't use that as a barometer that happens all the time,
Yeah.
because it's a big city. There's millions of people living here. It's going to be some petty theft and crime.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard more of a concern when we were in Spain than I hear here.
Or Paris.
Okay. Has the global recession impacted the price of property in Portugal?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's what I'm saying. I think the bubble's going to burst, but Canada used to require 10,000 in the bank. What's the medium required there? So,
For visa purposes?
I think for visa purposes is what she's talking about. And so our immigration person said 3 to 4 months worth of expenses. If you're renting an apartment for €600, that's going to look different than if you're renting an apartment for €1,600. Right? So
We didn't have, we came at a time where we didn't have to, all we just had to have was a bank account.
I love you, Action PJ. She's trying to get me to start a new channel.
Yeah, we didn't have the bank account. Yeah.
We walked to the bank account after we moved here and
That's
opened
true.
it up.
That's true. That's right.
Oh,
We were
wow.
fortunate.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel for people because, the person that we're renting to, he has to put out a huge outlay of money, just to apply
Yeah.
and have in the bank in
That's
Portugal.
something to consider
Yes.
for folks who are like, hey, I looked into this based on everything that I know. I'm going to move in like 5 years. It's going to be a different picture in 5
Yeah.
years. The 3 of us here, the 5 of us, the 3 little boxes you're looking at, we all came at different times, and the requirements were different for each of us. So
Yes, exactly.
Yes. I would say the sooner the better, because I have a feeling they're gonna put more barriers in place, because they said right now their immigration growth exceeds France and exceeds Germany.
wow.
So that's what the
too hard to
PM
get into.
right? So I think they've achieved what they've tried to achieve, and that the PM was talking about that in the last 2 weeks. So I don't know that means anything. I'm not saying that, but they did not vote to get rid of the golden visa. It was close. So last I heard, it's still a thing. They were talking about it. So yeah, definitely sooner than later. Can Twanna share experiences 3 and 4?
Yes. So 3 was the one. Rick and Alicia, you saw this. I think y'all saw. Everybody saw 3 because that was my love. And so what basically happened with apartment 3 is it had windows in all directions.
Yes.
And the way that they did that was that used to be an exterior balcony, and they broke those walls and basically made it be a just larger apartment with
Living
windows
space.
in all directions. So they expanded the place. So that's what that means and like how it happened. But what that means on paper is this was what the unit actually was. This is communal property because it's outside of the walls of your apartment. And so even for a condo, if you have a balcony, and even in the US, it's the same. If you have a balcony, it's outside the walls of your condo. So technically, even though only you can access your balcony, that's communal property. So like if it breaks, the building has to fix it, not you personally, because it's outside your walls. So when I was going for a mortgage, what this meant was the square footage that's on the plans is what the appraiser is going to say. And so all this extra square footage on the outside, I have to pay cash for that because the appraisal value is going to come in super low because the apartment's actually this big legally and on paper instead of this big. And so the appraisal value is going to come in low. So it's going to have to pay a lot of money out of pocket.
And they didn't want to pay the money to legalize it.
We asked them to, and they were like, oh, amaña, amaña, amaña. And so it was one of so it took forever. And I was like, my rent, well, the place I'm renting is about to end. And so I'm gonna have to move into another one, then move this. So it was a timing thing, but also I have a good banker. It's so important to get a good relationship with your bank. When you have a bank, go in there, chat with them, ask them questions, get a good relationship. My banker brought up a good point. They're like, yeah. So not only that is something they should have done anyway if they knew that they were buying it to flip it. So the fact that they didn't do that and they know that the bank would require it is a flag. Like they weren't paying attention to the details. And so the thing that he was worried about was it's a top floor unit and they took exterior and made it interior. He's like, I bet you're going to have leaks. And the leaks are going to be in the areas that used to be exterior.
A balcony.
Yep. Because now they had to put stuff to kind of like tint that in and make that interior. And he's like, you're probably going to have leaks, your top floor unit. It's going to be a pain in the ass for you. He's like, walk away from it. He's like, obviously make your own decisions. You're a grown woman, but like, there's going to be a lot of problems. He's like, if you buy that place, you're buying a problem. And so that was another lesson for me. It was like, I need a turnkey. I think all of us here wanted that, a turnkey place that you literally move in. You're new here. You have enough stuff to figure out and learn the language, figure out how things works. Buying a problem was not on my list of things that I wanted to do. So that was number 3. And then number 4 was...
That one hurt me.
I know. We loved that place for you. We loved that place for you. I was already planning the party we were going to have.
I already had it.
Me too. Lucy, me too.
I loved that place so much. Like I walked in and I felt just like, oh, this is home. And all those windows, by the way, it looked out on water. And so I was just like, this is mine. I just knew it. And I was like considering getting it anyway. And then I was like, what if he's right? What if it does start leaking? What if they don't change the paperwork? Like they said, what if it? And in the end, the paperwork still wasn't fixing all these things. It took a very long time. The leaks, we just flooded here. So I would have been finding it out really quickly. And so number 3 was like a no. I walked away from that one too. And then the 4th and final one, which was I'm renting. Fine, universe, I will rent it. And I will not buy right now. The 4th one, beautiful 3-bed, 2-bath. Wraparound terrace, water views, gorgeous, not a top floor. Like I learned all the lessons I thought there were to learn. And it was like, great. And I was so desperate. And I feel like when you go into, whether it's dating or a home purchase, when you go in with desperation, that's not the best look for you. That's not the most productive outcome for you. So they asked me to raise my bid. And they asked me to raise it a little bit. It kind of started to feel like the carrot that they were holding. Raise it a little bit more. Okay, now we want you to pay the deposit. You sign the paperwork. Great. We're not going to pay. We're not going to sign until after you pay. You pay, and then we'll countersign. So they were doing all this stuff, totally, in my view, unprofessional things that they were doing and asking me to do. And I finally was like, it felt like this. You know what? No, I've been pulling this and going, I'll do it because I got to move out. I so wanted to be in my place by Thanksgiving. Everything in my soul was like, I want to be in my place and have friends over for Thanksgiving. And in the end, I ended up having Thanksgiving with these beautiful humans. So life gives you what you need. And so like, I ended up walking away from that place. That realtor called my number almost every day. I know, because it was like, oh, but she really, and so lost a sale. And if they're getting 5%, which my banker said about Remax, it gets about 5. Some of the other ones get about that too. So like 5% on a $300,000 place where the average income $7,000 to $1,000 on average per month. That's a lot of fucking money from one sale, right? And so that realtor was calling me almost every day after I said, no, I'm serious, I'm done. And they were like, oh shit. So they were calling almost every day to my cell. I never took the call. They found me on Instagram started following me, DM'd me, hey, we've been trying to leave me the fuck alone. One of my friends who's a lawyer, she's like, you need to start using the word harassment. Like they're harassing you. They need to leave you alone. And so that was a fourth place, and I walked away. And that final lesson, and I'll keep learning and growing, was just like, in due time, I will find my right place. Things will work out. It'll be better than I
Yeah.
probably can imagine. I
Yeah.
just need to trust. I need to be patient. I need to feel
Yeah.
secure. And a friend sent me something, and she was like, you need to start defining home outside of a physical building. I find my home in my friendships. I find my home in my ability to make good decisions about where I will call home. And so that, to me, it's like I did a lot of work that I probably needed to do emotionally about like, what will I ultimately purchase? That's a financial decision. That's a head decision. That's a heart decision. And I probably did need to spend some time renting and getting to know Portugal and Portuguese systems, Portuguese people, and how
Because
things
it
work.
is not the same.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
So how is it like being a single woman in Portugal, which is totally off topic? So
I
make
love
that
it.
quick.
I love it. I did a one-woman show called I Fucked Your Country when I lived in the United States, and it was about how I sampled the world my first time that I lived in Europe. It's set with a man from
So
England.
this is supposed to be PG, and I hope
Oh.
that this does not get demonetized for the amount of times you've dropped that F-bomb.
I boinked a lot of people when I first moved to Portugal, moved to Europe the first time, to England. And I grew up evangelical. And so I was just like, I had all these other people's rules of what I should be doing. And so when I let that go, I was like, let's just try different things. So dating here has been fun. I've used the apps, Tinder, Hinge, all of these things that you're on are here. So first it was accidental. I literally just came here. My phone had the apps on it. And I started getting all these pings from these fine ass Portuguese men and German and telling me, it's like, what? I need to make more time in my schedule for this. And so I ended up going on these tons of dates with hot German dude. It was great. And then I've dated a lot of different people. It's been fun. Some of the things that are hard that I think people don't talk about a lot is like when you're buddied up with a couple, relationships all have their ups and downs and things like that. Moving to a new place has its ups and downs and all of that thing. When you move to a new place on your own as a single person, those ups and downs you're kind of doing on your own. And so like it becomes extremely important, but at least for me, to like seek out real friends and like seek out good people. And not everybody who like, we're all over here, we're trying to do it or whatever. And it's like, I was very focused on like, is this a person who like, we're in this huddle together. If I needed something, if they need something, we're together, they're healthy. They're all of these things. Like, does it just feel like fluid, like being with them? And so like, that's been really important to me, is get a good social network around me. Dating, being safe the same way that I would be in the US. I think sometimes people are like, a new country, all these now do this. It's like, oh, they offered to show me this other city. I'm going to go. Would you fucking do that in the U? Would you freaking do that in the US?
You've already said it.
But same safety thing, like a new
Right.
country, but be smart still.
Right.
But yeah, just a lot of things. It's just, and it's different for everybody, right? If you don't date a lot in the US, you may date more or date less here. Who knows? But I find it interesting. I brought my cat with me, and that was another thing. Just like a Riverview was like, I need that for my emotional sanity. I didn't care what they were charging me to bring cats be. My baby girl was coming with me. That's my emotional support animal in my home. It's me and her. And so I wanted to make sure that I have my baby girl with me too. So do what you need as a single person to have your supports with you.
Definitely. You're making Auntie Trait laugh. I see that. So Ernestine, I'm not sure what you mean by budget European style, but if you mean keep in mind that the euro is usually stronger than the dollar, absolutely. Absolutely. And then someone asked about, did we know anyone who had come over here and started a business? So I don't know any Americans who started like a brick and mortar. I don't know if you mean like a brick and mortar business or like an online business or, something. I'm not sure exactly. Here it is, mother entrepreneurship. Hey there, motherhood and entrepreneurship.
I've seen Black in Portugal. There's a couple here that I guess they're headhunters.
Okay.
Executive
Oh,
finders.
So do they find
Rory,
executives
Rory,
here?
I'm not sure exactly what that is, but yeah, I mean, if they do it from here, but they live here and their business, so they have a business.
I mean,
And
well,
someone
we have a
else-
business, but it's not a Portuguese business.
But somebody even opened a restaurant.
Yes, the young man, the one that has the memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, but that's an
there are
important
people.
question you ask, Khaleesi, brick and mortar versus online, because I think a lot of things online is easier to do. Brick and mortar is probably some different regulations you need to go through, to get that. I would imagine, but
Yeah, exactly.
Friends, Soul Finesse, they do the catering. They have done
Yeah.
some catering. So.
Yeah.
Right. But they don't have a brick and mortar place.
But my
Yeah,
business is a US based business. I have a team of 10 and everybody's in the US except for me and one of our designers. So I work remotely for my US based company.
so we are going to wrap it up at 2.5 hours.
Oh, well, one thing I wanted to say, back on topic is to remember that when you want to purchase a property, you need to have initial cash outlay, because in America, usually the seller pays everything. Pays points, might pay, extra
Closing costs.
closing costs, that kind of thing. Here in Portugal, the buyer pays everything. You're paying all the taxes up front and before the mortgage, So, we had to pay down to 10%. It goes to the owner and not to escrow, which is scary,
Very scary.
very scary.
But you can do that through your lawyer.
And also you have to pay all the taxes and fees, which for us was an additional $13,000.
But those are paid when you sign the deed. So when we physically went to the bank, met the owner, they read everything out, everyone agreed to everything. Our lawyer was there, their lawyer was there. That's when I was saying, at that point, once they said, okay, here's how much you need to go upstairs and pay this, that's when I said, okay, we're good.
Yeah, but it was paid from our funds, not from the mortgage funds.
Right. So that was like $25,000 outlay in cash, which, so you add that onto your down payment.
Yeah, you just got to plan for all of that. But and we transferred money once we knew we were getting close. We started transferring money on a regular basis to build it up. So by the time it was time to sign the deed, we were good, and we had everything there.
Because the offer is 10% down, and so that's about 20,000, depending on the price of the house.
Well, I'm going to remember that if I pull out, you get my money, but if you pull out, I get double. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Also, it's very interesting when the deed is actually a little smaller than, you're not signing tons and tons and tons of, well, we did everything on the tablet, but it's not as arduous as it is in the US.
Yeah, there's a bajillion signatures needed in the
US. Also, and then they actually read the deed from beginning to end in Portuguese. There's somebody sitting there reading it. And then your attorney is interpreting it to you in English.
And one statement that I liked in the reading of the deed is that it was a statement that said, "This has been read to you in a clear and loud voice." I was like, well, that's actually good, because someone's not trying to just, they're like
mumble their way through it.
Language or anything like that, so you know what you're agreeing to. Because sometimes when you're looking at that deed, you're just like, just give me the paper.
Yes. I wonder if
I'll look it over later.
Exactly. I'm wondering if that's left over from the days of not a lot of the population being literate.
Possibly, yeah.
So it's very interesting.
It's interesting, yeah.
And we all sat in a room,
together.
All together, the owners, the buyers, the
lawyers, the
notary, the secretary, so it was like 10 people in there,
listening to the deed. And oh
You
my
know?
gosh.
And it took
So-
about an hour, maybe 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yeah.
But it took longer because we had to have a translation done
An
afterwards
interpret.
of the meeting in Portuguese. They
Right.
did a short abbreviated one. But he was kind of telling us as they went along. But again, it made it much more comfortable having someone there representing us.
Yes.
That was Portuguese, spoke Portuguese, but spoke perfect English to us,
Yeah.
so that we were comfortable
Mhm.
doing everything. And I would say we were also fortunate that the buyers, agents, those guys were really nice.
Mhm.
They were so helpful. They didn't hesitate when we told them we wanted a mortgage. They were like, "Oh, we can help you with the banks."
Yeah,
You know, they didn't.
our closing was like 90 days.
Wow.
So
Wow. Okay. Any closing words that you want to leave, Twanna?
You can do it. I think it's hard. Like when you think
I'm glad you're still positive.
I am. And I know in my heart I will find the right place. Wherever, whenever, however that ends up being, but I don't feel like it's not going to happen. You know, I do have the emotional, like I was sad, you know, for each of those that didn't work out for sure. It's like, but it didn't kill my belief and my
Yeah.
knowledge that like it's gonna work.
Yeah.
And just my faith that like when it does work out, it's going to be better than these things. Like it's going to be, and each place I found it is progressively better than the last one. And so I have every reason to believe the final one that I end up buying is going to be okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we are going to wrap this up, but before we do, we've got to give a shout out to Dr. Perfect 07. Thank you for the super chat. Y'all know that all of our super chat, super thanks money, super sticker money goes to our scholarship fund for anyone who wants to have financial training. So if we do not see, we are not going to see you next week because next Sunday is Christmas Day, but we will be going live on New Year's Day. So the Sunday after next, we will be going live on that day. And then we're going to start doing short lives in the middle of the week, but we're not going to have as much interaction with the chat and the audience. So thank you, Dr. Perfect, so much.
Thank you.
Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. If this is information that you find interesting, share it with someone who could use it, whether they're moving to Portugal or someplace else, because I'm going to tell you, we move to these places assuming that the laws work the same as they do in the US, and they just don't. They just don't. So what should you watch next? Maybe our best cities for Blacks to retire. That is in the playlist. Watch that next. And otherwise, we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay.